Great. Welcome everyone to the Town of Greater Napanee regular session of council for the 24th day of June, 2025. We'll call the meeting to order and just for a little bit of housekeeping, I'd just like to remind everyone that this evening's meeting is being live streamed via our YouTube channel. We've been placed on our YouTube channel for those folks that don't have the ability to be here tonight or maybe are watching from home. Welcome. And for those folks that will watch it tomorrow or the next day or next week, welcome to them as well. So we'll call the meeting to order. As we do now, we're going to start our opening proceedings with the national anthem. So I'll ask everyone in the council chambers to stand and face the flags as we play the national anthem. Yeah. Thanks, folks. Obviously, we had a little bit of technical difficulty, and I'm hoping that somebody might have pushed the button so the folks at home could have heard the good singing that was going on. But if not, I can assure you that it was done very well. So we'll start this evening's meeting off with our closed session. We had a closed session earlier this evening, so we'll look for a motion to rise and report from closed session. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Pennell. At closed session this evening, I would like to report, we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. This evening, I'd like to report that in closed session tonight, Council approved the closed session minutes of May 13th and June 4th, reviewed applications for the Market Square Committee, and received legal advice regarding litigation and gave direction to staff. And we'll also be looking for a motion as well, a further motion that Council appoint Jim Barber and Trevor Oak to the Market Square Advisory Committee for the remainder of the 2025 term. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns? If not, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? The motion's carried. We'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. We were to have two presentations this evening. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have the East Lennox and Addington OPP detachment. I think maybe Councillor Norrie can expand a little bit on that.
No, unfortunately, our volunteer or appointee, Jessica Jones, cannot make it tonight, personal reasons. So I've asked that it be moved over to the July 8th meeting, please.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Norrie. So we'll be deferring that presentation to July 8th. That being said, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in? Oh, sorry. We'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we do have a presentation tonight, and it's a very nice presentation. It's with respect to the 2025 Senior of the Year. Cameron, what we're going to do is I'm going to call you to the front, and I'm going to say a few words, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to say a few words as well. So. Great, thanks, Kylie. I think we're ready to go then. Senior of the Year Award gives each municipality in Ontario the opportunity to honor one outstanding local Ontarian who, after the age of 65, has enriched the social, cultural, and civic life of their community. This year, I am honored to present the Senior of the Year Award to Cameron Eady. Cameron makes many ongoing contributions to the community as a volunteer, especially in the past 5 years, through his contributions to the Facebook page, Our Napanee, Do You Remember? Cameron has collected and stored copies of the Napanee Express and the Napanee Beaver dating back to 1862. He shares clips of these online, encouraging interest in preserving local history, inviting interaction among community members. In addition, Cameron has toured and photographed local buildings of historical interest, such as the old post office tower, the Napanee Golf Club, the Curling Club, and County Courthouse. He documents these visits and shares them on the website, which includes a helpful search tool. Cameron also documents the autobiographies of important local residents, such as the late renowned artist Ruth Brooks. In addition, he posts photographs from more contemporary sources, such as aerial photos taken by the late Jeff Webster. Cameron has spent countless hours documenting local history and sharing it freely. His significant efforts benefit newcomers and longtime residents alike in a profound and positive way. I am pleased to present this award during the month of June, which is celebrated as Seniors Month in Ontario. During the month of June, we recognize the way seniors contribute and enrich our communities. Thank you, Cameron, for the way you exemplify this enthusiasm for our community. And I'm just going to get a little bit off script and say a few things that, we are a growing municipality, and we're not the Napanee that we used to be. And in order to maintain who we are, which is, I think, very important to our municipality, it's the actions and the things that Cameron just does. That's how we remain to be Napanee. And that's why it's so important for our municipality to have folks like Cameron to do the things that he's done. So congratulations, Cameron. I'm going to present this certificate to you from the province of Ontario and the town of Greater Napanee. And we're available for some photos if you want. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to say a few words if you'd like.
Right on. Okay. Yeah, I got some people to thank. That's very nice. I'm not a smile.
Yeah, we'll make you. Hey?
You're gonna make me one.
Yeah, one way or the other. So
65 years.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I am happy though. So that's great.
So Cameron, say a few words, please.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I must say I've had a lot of fun because when I retired from Goodyear, I decided I was going to have some fun. So anyway, it's a good job. It's just not a lot of fun sometimes. Anyway, so I marched over to the museum, and they kind of helped me a bit. They calmed me down a bit, and I have to thank the museum and Heather, the archives, first of all. She can't be here. She's in BC or someplace. And none of the museum staff could be here because they're working. They have like stuff on Tuesday nights. But they allowed me to publish the Jeff Webster negatives, which had never been published on this site, Our Napanee, and the Mike Murphy negatives, and the old high school history essays my dad saved. There's about 100 of them, of people would document their farm history, and Lewis Meats was documented, and all kinds of. So I want to make sure that's where it all started, kind of went over there. then I was doing a little bit on our Napanee. Then I met Bill Walraven right there in the gray sweater. And Bill's been a really good friend, and he's a kind of amateur historian like I am, and he's really good at finding stuff. So he finds lots of stuff. I may put it on the site, but he's the oops, bang. So he got me into the beaver. He said one day, you know, I'm taking beavers from the beaver office. Like, I said, what? Like, yeah, he says, I took like 1932 yesterday. I said, what? Like, you can just take them? Yeah, as long as you return them. So I started taking them and photographing them and putting them on the site. So he got me into that. He's also found unique and valuable, historically valuable items, like the aluminum Second World War tape made in Aldershot, England during the Second World War that was sent to some of the Napanee. It's on the museum website, but he's also presently housing all the Napanee beavers in his garage. So he's, and then Adam Prudenhorn can't be here. He's looking after his children tonight. He's probably watching on YouTube. He gave me unfettered access to the Napanee beaver paper collection and negative collections, and he let me just do willy-nilly of the stuff on the internet. Like and all this is organic, by the way. None of this was organized at all. First time I've met Rick Coachman, and I know Angie, but I don't see her very often. So, you know, this is organic how it all worked out. It wasn't planned. It just kind of happened. And he also donated hundreds of that hardcover Orlando French book that I ran little contests for every day. Gave away hundreds of those. And then Rick Coachman and Angie for having the site and administering the Our Napanee site, which is a really, I should read this. Created Our Napanee Facebook site and successfully administered. It's grown to almost 10,000 members. And it's a very safe and clean site where people can reminisce safely, which is really important to me. Because every time I put a picture of someone, my name's on it, because I put their picture, so I take it. So I haven't had to do anything, because everybody's been really good. You know, you have to be respectful. So people, and I want to thank Rose and my daughter Jen for being supportive of me. Rose puts up with studio lights and I do it very early in the morning, and negatives lying around the house. And my daughter Jen's she's busy with family now in her life, and but she loves history, so she's always excited for me, which is really, really nice. Then I have to thank the people of Napanee for being so like putting names to faces and being really respectful of people. It's really super important to me. Like I can't even think of anything that's been bad I've seen on there, and I'll be gone if it starts. So, and of course I have to thank the town council for selecting me. Thank you. Yeah.
Well deserved, Cameron.
Yeah, well, I'm having fun, so I'm glad I can do something fun that's accepted. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for what you do for the municipalities. Now, you folks are more than welcome to stick around for the game if you want, if not, we'll get you through this to get out. I'm sure it's gonna be very riveting.
I'm sure it's gonna be.
Thank you. Are you sure, Cameron? Are you really sure?
I probably will.
Okay, moving on. Next on our agenda are deputations, scheduled deputations, which I don't believe we have any, Madam Clerk. Deputations items on the agenda. I don't believe have any of those this evening. And correspondence items on the agenda. I don't believe we have any of those either. Unfinished business. I don't believe we have any unfinished business, which gets us right into the administrative consent agenda. First matter up is council minutes, regular session of council, June 11th, 2025. Is there anything in those minutes anyone would like to speak to or ask any questions about? Seeing none. Committee minutes, Arts Advisory Committee and Market Square Committee Advisory Committee. Is there anything in those minutes? Any members of council have any questions, or the council members that are on those committees? Is there anything you would like to highlight? Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question to Councillor Norrie, if he happens to know the answer. The Rockfest, why didn't they take us up? I thought we offered them a spot under our umbrella, or is that definitely planned for next year? Like, they're not doing anything in Napanee now?
No, they partnered with some radio station near the island. for this year, and we're hoping for next year to be coordinated. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Thanks, Councillor Norrie. Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make mention that the Market Square Committee will be hosting hopefully with council's permission, an open house on July the 30th downstairs here to come on in and give your thoughts of what the downstairs should look like and uses and such like that. So we're reaching out to the community, but of course there'll be more to follow, and council will be brought in up to speed on that and get your approval on that. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Pennell. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to correspondence for information items dated June 24, 2025. Is there anything in the correspondence for information items that anyone would like to bring out or speak to? Seeing none, I think there may be something in there, but I think we're going to address it later on this evening anyways with respect to some public discussions. So I think we'll just leave it till then. Executive Services, Royal Canadian Legion Branch 137, 2025 patio license. Is there anything in that report, Councillor Norrie?
Just briefly, I know they've had two before, but they have a new board now, and they're going in a direction to be more community oriented and open up more. So that's why they want to try the Friday, Saturdays. And they already have 3 picnic tables ready. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm sure that we'll get down there and take part in that. So, Executive Services minor amendment to Chamber of Commerce agreement. Is there anything in that report anyone who had any questions about or would like to bring highlight to? Deputy Mayor Calver.
Thank you, through your worship. So I just trying to figure out why they don't want the vendors to provide proof of insurance. I think we should maybe do a little bit more research into that. Doing multiple events myself over the years, we've always had to provide insurance, liability insurance. When we rent a venue, we've always had to provide our insurance. Even though the people putting the event on have insurance, it's a double kind of edged sword with insurance. And I think we just got to make sure that we're being safe. I know it said that they've checked with other markets and it doesn't seem to be a necessity, but I don't know how they get away with that. And I just want to make sure that we are protected, and maybe we could get something from the chamber insurance company stating that they would take full responsibility.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Calver. Madam Clerk, I see that it's your report. Is there anything else you can add to that or any suggestions?
Through your worship, no, if council would be more comfortable with this, if we got something in writing from the chamber's insurance company, we could certainly pull this item out of the consent agenda, do that amended motion. The main goal with this was that the chamber has observed they're struggling to retain vendors week over week at that cost. If people aren't selling large amounts of product as the market is growing, and the thought was this could help reduce barriers to get them to start up, that the risk would be on the chamber as the primary event host. But if council would prefer that we get that additional documentation, we could do that.
Thank you. I would like to see that additional information. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Calver. Madam Clerk, so we'll pull this out of the consent agenda. We put it into unfinished business. Is that the idea? Okay, we'll put it to the end of items for consideration. Next matter is Executive Services Palace Deputation on funding for illegal encampments on private property. Is there anything in that report that anyone would like to clarify or ask Mr. Grant as to how that went? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
I must commend the CAO and his participation in his professionalism without losing his cool. All right, at this meeting and dealing with tell us and the concerns that the municipality has. So very well represented, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Shank. Well said. I haven't had an opportunity to watch the whole thing. I watched some of it, and I think we'll probably have a more robust conversation with respect to this and the report that's in our agenda a little later. So it still boggles my mind, but we can discuss that later. Activity report, growth and infrastructure. Is there anything in that activity report that anyone would like to highlight or ask any questions about? Seeing none. Activity report, executive services, June 2025. Anything in that activity report that anyone had any questions about or would like to speak to? Activity report, fire services, June 2025. Is there anything in that report that anyone would like to speak to or highlight or have any conversations about? Councillor Purnell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to congratulate the recruits and also offer my apologies. I did confirm that I was going to be there for the ceremony, but I fell ill and I had to miss it. So, but I regret not being there, but thank you, Chief, for this, and thank all the recruits and to all of the fire services for keeping me safe at night. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Purnell. Is there anything else? Seeing none, I think, Chief, I can't remember. I'm just trying to scroll through quickly. The calls for service that we're getting, we've seen a great reduction. Is that later on the agenda or is that in this report here?
Good evening, Your Worship. That's in this report, and really the call reduction in the area of medical responses continues to trend in a positive way in terms of our new agreement based on the medical priority dispatch system that the paramedics follow now. And we've noticed a sustained reduction over the last 2 quarters. And we look forward to that continuing. Month over month, since our last activity report, it's actually down to 79% reduction in calls. And but we did also notice a trend upwards in our fires in public spaces, and we're working with bylaw and our partners in the community to reduce that. So overall, I think we're looking at a 25% reduction with all calls involved. So still a positive trend, but creeping up a bit.
Yeah, that's great. And you're absolutely right, Chief. It is a positive trend and something that we thank you for. If there's nothing else in the fire department activity report, we'll move to Parks, Recreation and Culture, June 2025. Is there anything in that report that anyone would like to bring any attention to or speak to? Seeing none. Financial and IT Services Activity Report, June 2025. Is there anything in that activity report that anyone would like to ask any questions about? Seeing none. And Access E11 Report, May 2025. Council, is there anything in that report anyone would like to bring any attention to or highlight or ask any questions about? Seeing none, then Madam Clerk will look for a motion, I'm guessing, with the exception of the insurance thing, right? We'll look for a motion that council consent to the approval of the following routine items, that the minutes of regular session of council dated June 11, 2025 be adopted as presented, that the Draft Arts Advisory Committee and Market Square Advisory Committee minutes of June 2 through to 5th, 2025 be received for information, that the correspondence for information items dated June 24, 2025 be received, that council receive for information the Executive Services Royal Canadian Legion Branch 137 2025 outdoor patio license report, and further that council approve an outdoor patio license for the Royal Canadian Legion 137 from June 25th, 2025 to September 30th, 2025 at 26 Mill Street East, Napanee, subject to the following conditions: that the owner shall ensure the patio is removed on or before September 30th, 2025 and ensure that the patio meets all the conditions of bylaw number 0438 and all the public health and provincial requirements, and install a maximum of 3 tables and 12 chairs on the patio as outlined in the application. that council received for information, executive services minor amendment to the, no, that's the one we're going to leave out, I believe, Madam Clerk. That council receive for information, the executive services Pellis deputation report, and that the activity reports for growth, infrastructure and executive services, fire department, parks, recreation, culture, and financial IT services for the month of June 2025, and the access E11 report for May 2025 be received for information. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Now, Madam Clerk, we'll go back to 9.6, or do we leave that right to the end? Okay. Perfect. Items for consideration. Council inquiry follow-up, transitional housing. Mr. Grant, are you going to speak? Oh, no, Dave's going to speak to that. So Dave, whenever you get up to the front and set, then the floor will be yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, and to you, Council. As mentioned, staff received a request at the June 11th, 2025 Council meeting to prepare a report to address questions received from the community related to transitional housing projects. To address the questions brought forward, staff completed independent research and engaged with Pellis staff, including the Manager of Social Services and the Director of Social Services directly. I'll now provide some key findings and responses to the questions brought forward. One question raised was what consultation obligations Pellis have when adding these housing units. In short, there are no prescribed consultation requirements, but as confirmed by Pellis, they do seek to engage with neighbors after a use of a transitional housing unit begins, roughly with 1 to 2 weeks notice. This comes in the form of door-to-door engagement, and information such as operational details and key contacts with Pellis is provided as per Pellis. Another question brought forward was whether there were any rules that limit the number of transitional housing units that can be in a specific area or that could be within proximity to sensitive uses such as schools. As identified through staff review, attempts to regulate who lives in a given area directly or indirectly through imposing setbacks or locational criteria for a specific group of people is prohibited under provincial legislation. As such, there are no rules that limit the number of these houses in a certain area. Of note, Pellis did confirm that they do consider location criteria, such as proximity to sensitive uses, in their process. Another question raised was what, if any, authority does the town have to influence the site selection process? Ultimately, the town does not have authority to influence the site selection process, but Pellis has expressed a willingness to work with the town and their staff and council so that transitional housing can be situated in areas Pellis and the town can agree on. An additional question raised was whether the town can ask Pellis to provide 24/7 supervision within the housing units themselves. Pellis's response was that they do not undertake 24/7 monitoring of the units themselves and work to select individuals who do not require such a high level of support. The final question addressed through the response letter was the distribution of transitional housing units located in the county. It was determined that all 23 transitional housing rooms that are located in the county are situated in Napanee, while the other 12 under Pellis's jurisdiction are situated in Picton. I am available for additional questions or comments at your convenience. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Dave, thanks for this report. One of the reasons I asked for the report was because I was getting a lot of questions from residents, and of course that one on Center Street, that when it does open, it's going to be in my ward, Ward 5, and probably I'm going to get most of the questions on it. I don't know. And the other one on John Street that we had before is also in my ward. So, and there's a connection there, and there was a question from a lot of residents about the density because they're in such close proximity to each other. And I know there's provincial legislation that we can't require, we can't tell people where to live and where not to live. But I think this situation goes against the provincial legislation in a way, because I think the provincial legislation was meant to allow people to live wherever they basically wanted to, or to locate group homes wherever without any restrictions. But in this case, we seem to be putting them all in one area. So we're kind of instructing them to put them, maybe we're not instructing it, but that's where they're coming from with this, is it's all in one. They're only about a block from each other, the one on John Street and the one on Center Street. So that's one area that I'm a little, I don't know quite how to answer residents on when they pose those questions. Of course, the other one, and you answered about the school zoning, but the question specifically that I had from residents was the crosswalk on Center Street, which is only about 10 feet from this address for the house. Not the, I forget what the number of square, anyway, doesn't matter. They weren't concerned so much about the school. It's fine. It was the crosswalk and students walking back and forth to school every day. So I don't know if you can address that any further.
Go ahead, Mr. Grant. I think Mr. Grant wants to weigh in here.
Sure, thank you. And I'll ask Mr. Netton to weigh in after if he has anything to follow. So one thing I would point out, Councillor Martin, is in the correspondence we received back from Pellis, they did indicate a willingness to have discussions with us to see if there was any sort of framework or recommendations that we could provide about locations of transitional homes. I would also point out that, the result from my deputation to the Pellis Committee, while it did not result in an agreement to come with us to discuss provincial legislation, there was a vote by the Pellis Committee to hold, I guess I would call it a housing summit of all lower tier municipalities in Lennox and Addington and Prince Edward and County. And I would suggest that this item would be a perfect agenda item for the summit, something that we can certainly raise to discuss with our Pellis colleagues and other municipalities about location and criteria, and in fact, consultation if that is the will of council.
Thanks, Mr. Grant. Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. And I agree with it. And I want to thank you for the presentation you made to Pellis, because I thought it was right on. You did a marvelous job of presenting our community's views on the situation. But I also want to recognize too that Pellis, they recognize there is a situation where we need transitional housing. And in this particular case, we're going to hopefully get another 8 additional people off our streets and into housing. So that in itself is a good thing. It's just if we could tweak somehow how we do it would be a marvelous thing. So I agree with what the CAO is saying. And I think, like I said, I thank you, Dave. Thank the CAO for the report. And hopefully some of those questions will be that the residents and taxpayers has been answered. And they may not like all the answers, but at least we try to get some of the answers from them. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Is there anything else before I weigh in? Go ahead, Councillor Shank, then I'll go to Councillor Pennell.
Government bureaucracy, but let's put it this way. So they fund transitional housing. All right. We have 75% of the transitional housing is in the town of Greater Napanee. All right. The other 25% is in Picton. So none of the other municipalities or those areas are having it. And they're funding other areas on private lands that are creating more of an expense towards us. All right. Because they can't do that because neighbors complain and other health reasons. Then they go ahead and then we have the expansion of Quinte. All right. Detention. And some of the problems that we're having there with some of the people that are being released that are in the homelessness situation also, which is more cost. Now, when you consider the funding that they've been getting, and they've very much went ahead and said since last 4 or 5 years, they have you know, I've got 45 people off, I think, if I believe, yeah, 45 people that have solved the homelessness, and another 25 people living in transitional housing, and 40,000 nights of transitional. If they were so really great with the numbers, they should figure out exactly what it costs the taxpayers of the town of Greater Napanee also. So, and their reluctance to work with the town or to go to Queen's Park to maybe solve some of the discrepancies is almost like a double-edged sword. So they're giving you all sorts of fluff, all right? They're telling you what you don't want to hear, and it basically means to nothing. So they're not coming up with any solutions, but, oh, they'll sit down with you. So am I irate with this? We're doing everything we can. I wish they would do more to maybe solve some of the problems also and sit with the municipalities that are impacted with it. All right. Because if you're living and all of a sudden in a nice neighborhood that you've worked all your life for to build that house, to have your kids in a nice, safe community, and then all of a sudden there's a transitional house, and then you have people looking in those windows, looking at your teenage daughter or whatever, or other problems that you're having, which those people have told me. And they go, oh, well, you know, whatever. Well, are they footing the bill? You know what I mean? There's other locations that we've had with the E11 in certain areas of our municipality. Where is the right of the taxpayer when all of a sudden this gets put right beside it? You know what I mean? I'd love nothing better to find out exactly who the people are, the managers of that, and buy a transitional house, put it right beside their property. So there's got to be some dialogue gone both ways here to solve a problem. We can't be just like a bunch of ostriches and stick our head in the sand. Now, we've done everything we could possibly do, and I know the mayor and the CAO and everybody else has done, but, you know, it's time to buck up or do something. So there's my rant for the night.
Thanks, Councillor Shank. Go ahead, Mr. Grant.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shank. So I appreciate council's frustration, Councillor. I do. I would say that the one a positive takeaway from my deputation to the Pellis Committee was a recognition among the elected members of the Pellis Committee that there was indeed a need to work together to solve a wider issue, a need to have a dialogue. You know, I think that's when the idea for I guess what I'll call a summit came forward, where all municipalities come forward and get to have an understanding of the complete picture. I do believe we'll have the opportunity to share our experiences and costs with fellow municipalities and solution seek. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'll withhold judgment.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. That summit's not scheduled till September though, right?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have the exact date. What I do understand that the Pellis Committee had asked for was that meeting take place, that a report come back to that committee to identify how that would work, and that it happened no later than September is my understanding. But I can certainly reach out to our counterparts at Pellis to learn more about what opportunities will be made available and when that might occur.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Grant. I go to Councillor Pennell, then I'll go to Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. There's just something spoken about the positioning of where these transitional homes are. And I just wanted to speak a little bit about my experience with this. In my other profession, I've worked with investors to go out and purchase homes that fit the zoning bylaw that will allow a transitional house, which is basically R1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 of the Napanee zoning bylaw. And then what they'll do is they'll purchase a home based on approaching Pellis and seeing if Pellis would like to enter into an agreement with that investor for that house. So it's not very much of where the town has anything to do with the placement of where these are or the county. It's with these small amount of investors or landlords that are willing to get into the program. And that's, I know that the location has to be approved, but that's how it starts. So it's not like if somebody just comes by and says, okay, let's do it here. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. I just ask a quick question. You say that the location has to be approved. Who does the location have to be approved by? So the purchaser would buy or suggest that he's going to buy a location and it would have to be approved through Palace then?
So with the investors that I worked with, they would go out and seek a home that would fit the Palace model. And then maybe I misspoke a little bit, but the approval would be if Palace would join and partner with that investor for that location. So there is a little bit of approval of the location, but I was just saying that that's how it starts about where the location is the investor says, or the landlord says, I have this unit. And basically it goes by the bedrooms on that. So that's what I meant about approval before my investors would go forward with the purchase would be if they could enter an agreement with Palace.
Yeah, okay, great. No, it just tweaked something I was thinking of. So, but I appreciate that. Thanks, Dave. Go ahead, Ange.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Grant, the question I have is regarding the summit. And so we have Palace, we have the town. Will the province be invited to attend by way of MPP Brise?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hicks. I don't have details on that, Councillor, but when I reach out, as I've just committed to doing, to get more details on that, I can certainly ask that question if there'll be provincial representation at that meeting.
Thank you. As they are the majority, the major funder, and this is who our original issue started with, was the provincial legislation. I think it would be good. I know the minister is not going to show up, but I think if the MPP could be invited, that would be really, really good. Thank you.
So through you, Councillor Hicks, we can certainly do that. And it's worth pointing out that Palace is a housing manager and they are managing the program that is owned by the province and their responsibility. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that their funding has been limited for quite some time. And there are a number of organizations throughout the province that are lobbying for more funds.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Thanks, Mr. Grant. Is there anything else before I weigh in? Seeing none, and just to where this sort of started with the transitional thing, and I received some phone calls as well, Bill, on it. So I find it somewhat concerning that in the report it suggests that in practice, generally engage with the neighbors a week or two after they have already started using the home in the transitional housing. To me, that doesn't make any sense. Is that they've known that this location is going to be used. We've tried very hard at the municipality to be as open and transparent and fair with the public that we can, but they don't start talking to people until after people are moved in. I mean, holy man, somebody knocked on my door and said, yes, just to let you know, we've got a transitional housing next door to you after it's already happened. I think that's ludicrous. But it just doesn't make any sense to me. So that's one concern that I have. Another one is that later on this summer, we're looking at, and I don't know if you can help me tonight, Dave, but if you can, you can. If you can't, you can't. We'll get you to come back. But we're going to start talking about a bylaw to regulate rooming houses. And when you look at the physical description of a rooming house, and you look at the physical description of a transitional house, they seem to be pretty close. And so we've got the ability to manage rooming houses by bylaw, but it's been suggested that we don't have the ability to manage transitional housing by bylaw. And to the untrained eye, which I will admit that I am, I don't think you could tell them apart, because a transitional house looks very similar to a rooming house. It's got a bunch of rooms in it where people don't have access to kitchen. They have shared kitchen services. They have shared probably bathroom facilities. So how, in Lord's name, is it that we can talk about doing a bylaw on rooming houses, but we can't manage transitional housing? And that's the question I have for you, and I don't expect an answer tonight, and I'm sorry, I sort of, it sprung on you, but late last night as I was doing some final touches on the, on my agenda preparation and reading through the forward calendar, I saw the thing about rooming houses, and I'm thinking, wow, I don't know if I could tell the difference between a rooming house and it's the old, and Bob can appreciate this, you know, a false pretense is always a fraud, but a fraud isn't always a false pretense in the crime world, in the policing world. Well, is a transitional house always a rooming house, but a rooming house isn't always a transitional house? I don't know. Anyways, if I could send you home with a little bit of work, I kind of like to get that sorted unless you can weigh in this evening. So go ahead.
Thank you for the question through you. I do think that there's a nuanced question because, again, on the surface, I think that's a fair assessment to make in terms of understanding what is the difference. And I think it'd be best for staff to take that away and potentially prepare a report subject to council's desire that speaks to that more clearly in relation to the rooming house bylaw as well.
Great. Great. Thanks, Dave. And I guess I've done a lot of research, a lot of reading, and it's interesting because in Prince Edward County, Pella celebrated the purchasing of a decommissioned nursing home with respect to transitional housing. And I thought, you know what, that's kind of a cool idea. That might work, right? I just feel that sometimes there may be some other options out there. And I feel for these folks that are in Bill's ward. I really do. And the fact that this was surprised on them. And I appreciate the fact that we do need to find housing. I just think we can do a better job of it. But in any event, I hope that's about all I've got to say, at least at this point. I'm sure there'll be some further discussions going forward. But is there anything out of what I had to say that anybody else would like to comment on? Councillor Hicks.
You raised a very interesting point and I read it too. And I think it goes back to the old saying of it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is permission. Hence the 2 weeks after it's already in operation, that's when the notice is given. And to your second point about the nursing home, has the county had does anybody know what's happening with the Omni, the old Village Green? Oh, Councillor Pinnell.
Councillor Pinnell, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, as Councillor Hicks was asking a question, I just pulled up. It is currently for sale. So it is listed on the open market. I'll leave the price alone on that, but it is currently up for sale.
What a wonderful opportunity to place people in transition and be able to have office space, communal rooms, etc. I'm wondering if the county maybe shouldn't look into that.
Go ahead, Mr. Grant.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hicks, I can confirm that Omni has reached out to us discussing making that available for the community. We did direct them to the county and we just let them know that we're not in the housing business, but I can confirm that introduction was made.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there anything further? I'm sure we'll have some further discussions going forward. And again, once again, I apologize, Dave, for sort of springing that on you. It just sort of struck me as being strange, I guess. So is there anything further that anyone would like to comment on? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the council inquiry follow-up transitional housing report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. Council inquiry follow alternate meeting locations. Madam Clerk, are you going to speak to that briefly?
So through your worship, this is in response to an inquiry from a couple meetings ago about whether we could have one meeting a year in the north and one in the south to reflect the greater geographic area of Greater Napanee. This is here instead of in consent because per your procedural bylaw, if council does want to do this, and you certainly can, that is your right and privilege to do that. We would just need you to establish the date and location by way of motion, and then staff will do what we can to make that happen.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Deputy Mayor Calver.
Thank you, through your worship. With all the live streaming and stuff that we're doing here currently, is it feasible? Like how feasible is it with the internet in these rural areas? Like, you know, I know Selby or Roblin Hall and South Fred were suggested. What about Selby Hall? How come it wasn't in that suggested link? Because I know back in the day of COVID, I believe they were streamed out of Selby Hall.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, through your worship. As part of the budget last year, or for this year, Emergency Management Group actually purchased Starlink units, so we'll be able to deploy those pretty much at any of our locations for your internet service. Following on from that, County have offered the use of their mobile mic and camera system as well to us, so there shouldn't be an issue with that. Quality won't be the same as we get here, but we will be able to provide live streaming from most remote locations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor Calvert. Is there anything else before? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
I just like to, I think, I always believed it was a good idea. We always did it in the past, years ago. You know what I mean? Brings the whole municipality, you know what I mean? That nothing's being excluded or whatever. And, you know, you can see such a huge audience that we have tonight also, but maybe, you know, it might help, but it's up to the mayor. I'm not privy to all the agendas. All right. So when you go through the agenda, you see a light agenda. All right. Something that's not going to be here for a long time. I know there's that time 6 or 8 week period or whatever. I think of what I read, but if you can make it do and the agenda is not heavy, you know what? I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead, Jessica.
So through your worship, if council picks a date, staff will make that be a light agenda. But we need you to give us the date before we could do that. We would plan around the date. For example, we would want to make sure we don't have anybody who's planning to come in by Zoom, or we wouldn't want to have anything with anything controversial or anything that we might expect a large deputation. But with enough notice, we can plan around that.
Yeah. Go to Deputy Mayor Calver and then go to Councillor Hicks.
Okay, I know on paper it looks good, but we just did a meeting over on Wolf Island with the county. There was quite a few technical areas. It's a lot to ask of staff, so before we make that decision, we also got to be thoughtful of staff, because it's not just a matter of picking up our name tags and sitting down and going to a meeting. Your worship and I were both there, and we seen the ramifications of it, but anyways, that'd be up to the council. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Calver. Go ahead, Councillor Norrie, and then I'll go to Councillor Hicks.
I'm just curious, what's the work going on downstairs when it starts for asbestos being moved? Will we be having meetings somewhere else? And if so, could that be the date we move?
My understanding, Chris may be able to clarify, but my understanding is that with the removal of the asbestos, they should be able to do it in between council meetings. So maybe you can give us a little more on that, Chris. That's my understanding. It shouldn't take any more than 2, 3, 4 days or whatever.
Yeah, so through your worship, we are anticipating on waiting for the asbestos abatement project till after the 22nd of July meeting to give us more time in between regular sessions of council before the first meeting in August, which will give us like 3 to 4 week window. The contractors feel that that's probably the right move, just so we don't interfere with regular council business, and also knowing that we've scheduled an open house downstairs. We might even delay it till after that, but we'll figure that out in the meantime. But that is the sort of timeline expected. And they were worried that 2 weeks might not be enough time. And so we're looking to delay it until later in July.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Councillor Norrie. Councillor Hicks.
So, thank you, Your Worship. So if we were to pick from the dates provided, and I, for one, don't think we should be doing anything after October 28th, because then you're getting into budget, which is always a heavy meeting session and nobody needs to be driving, I don't think, any extra distance. But if we did South Fred September 9th and then October 28th for Roblin or Selby. Roblin is the further north, so it's more north central, I guess, if you're directionally challenged. But I'm proposing these dates because we need to start somewhere. So if we just say September 9th, which if things don't go according to plan with the abatement, we may have to do it elsewhere anyway, just thinking. So, and it gives staff extra time to get things redone here, because if I'm not mistaken, they're doing upstairs as well, right? They're not touching upstairs, just downstairs. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks. And as you were speaking, it's jumping into my mind, so I'm going to go a little bit off script here, Madam Clerk. Is it possible to arrange a special meeting? Because I know we're always going to have work to do, to arrange a special meeting around maybe an event or a time period in either the south or the north that happens, which what jumps right to my mind is the UAL celebrations in Adolphustown that we just went to. It might have been a nice touch to have a special meeting of council in and around that period of time, so that we can sort of celebrate that type of thing. So would it be prudent to maybe look and see what's in the north, what's in the south, that we can arrange maybe even a special meeting to have outside of these council chambers and I won't call it a, we're not making it up. It's just, it would be nice to have a meeting associated to an event or to a series of events in a location, that the meeting wouldn't be overly heavy, but we could also help to celebrate whatever that event may be in the south or in the north. I probably rambled on. It doesn't make any sense, but is that possible as opposed to just trying to pick a couple of dates off the calendar right now? So.
Through your worship, that's certainly an option. And if council wanted to defer this matter to the next meeting to think about some dates that might make sense, I would also suggest that if this is something council wants to make recurring, we could plan that every December we look ahead to the future year and decide when we want to have these special meetings, and then we could plan for things like the UEL celebrations in June.
I like the idea. I like the thought of it. We've got an extremely large geographical sized municipality, and it's kind of nice to sort of take the show on the road every once in a while, and it doesn't have to be exorbitant by any stretch of the imagination, but it's kind of a nice touch if we could marry it up with something that's already going on in the municipalities. Because like I say, the UAL thing, it just jumps to mind just because it was really kind of neat. There was a number of things that were on that weekend. If we could have arranged something, the week before or the week after to sort of help celebrate that type of thing, it kind of might have been a nice touch. So anyway, sorry to throw a kink in the ointment there, but is there any other further conversations anybody wants to have with respect to this? Yep, go ahead, Mike.
So do you want to do anything for this year? I mean, next year in June, I'd love nothing better than the old town hall of Adolphustown. I mean, it was established before Napanee Town Hall was, or that's where everybody came from. And at the time was Adolphustown. So what do you suggest for this year?
Now you've asked a question I don't have the answers to. However,
you know what?
Maybe
we're going to
Madam
go
Clerk,
into our summer. Could we think about this and come up with some type of dates and hash it around, and somebody might have a better idea? We have another meeting in July, and there's nothing's going to happen right off the bat anyway. But at the end of July, early September, or something like this, while people have their summertime, because there's a lot of cottages in the south and stuff like this. So there's other future thought. We'll put more thought into it and discuss it at the next meeting. Does that sound like a plan?
I think that's a good idea, Mike, because like I say, I really like the concept and I like the idea. It's just a matter of trying to, I just don't want to pick a date for the sake of picking a date. I'd like to pick a date that actually makes sense or means something to somebody if we can, right? So, because I think it really is a really neat idea. So go ahead, Deputy Mayor Calvert.
Thank you, through your worship. The old town hall, do we own that still? I don't think we own that anymore, do we? No, and I think there's people living in there, so I don't know if we could have a meeting there or not. Oh, in the basement. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, where do we want to go from here then, folks? Is this something that we want to defer to put our mind to it to see if there's something that we can put together at a later date, or do you want to just pick some dates? It's up to you.
I'll make a motion that we just defer it to the next meeting. It gives everybody some thought on it, what date or whatever.
Thanks, Madam Clerk. Do you have what you need? And when we put this under unfinished business then? Councillor Shank made the motion that we defer to the next meeting so that we can investigate further with respect to some special dates. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed, motion's carried. Financial IT services, international cross-border cell phone policy update. And I see Dave and Ellen coming up. So whenever you get settled in, the floor will be yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. So in response to the last meeting of council, staff are bringing back the cross-border cell phone policy for your consideration. So during that meeting, we heard from members of council that there was a desire to revisit this topic with a couple of items for consideration. One of them being expanding the policy from just the US border to all international borders. And staff, thank you for that feedback, and we are in agreement with that perspective and have amended the policy to include all international borders. That's the way that it's drafted as presented in the agenda. One of the other considerations that was brought forward was whether or not the policy needed to include all members of council or if it could be limited to staff and what the risks were associated if we were to look at that. So we do recognize that there's certainly a lower level of risk as it relates to cybersecurity, but there is still a risk associated with the exposure of sensitive information and our requirements under MFIPA and the risks associated with the data loss prevention of that type of information. So staff have presented to you an amended policy that does include the US and borders. It does not include removing council out of scope, just given the risks that still do exist there. However, if council wishes to amend that and not include council in the scope, it would no longer be a policy as approved by council, and it would be in the form of administrative directive where we would remove council from that scope, and that's something that we could do should that be the desire of council. However, it's staff recommendation based on the risk that we proceed to include all international borders and all staff and council.
Okay, thanks, Ellen. Who wants to start? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Calvert.
Thank you, through your worship. Again, I still have a hard time getting around. I've made many trips across the border. I've never been asked for my phone. I take my business phone across every time I go. I don't see where our phones would have any data that could be extracted. I mean, again, they're not looking for anything and everything. They're looking more for criminal activity. And by God, if they found criminal activity on my phone, I would like them to respond to that for sure. I just make sure there's no criminal activity on my telephone, because why would you want to be doing something like that? Again, if you want to make it an administrative objective to staff, by all means, but I don't see where it should be an issue and a concern. And if that is the case, then I guess everybody should look at getting personal cell phones and leave the company phones for company business. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Calvert. Is there anyone else that would like? Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Worship. I do have a question for Dave. As you know, I have one phone and two numbers. So if somebody were to say to me, open your phone at the border, or whatever happens, I don't know, I've never been asked to do that. And they see two numbers and I start getting all these questions. I also have my email on there for council, like I can access it, I can get into iCompass, so how do I separate that? I'm asking because I'm going away next April, so, but how is that separated for me in this instance?
Through your worship. So as I understand it, your question is how do you separate the numbers? The recommendation at the last session of council, and what we're wanting to provide for staff is that we would give them temporary phones. So we'd switch the SIMs from the work phones into a temporary phone that isn't connected to any town applications, email, and so on.
So in this case, you just remove that SIM from my phone and I
Correct.
go about my
And
business.
we'll put it into a different phone for you that doesn't,
Perfect.
that isn't connected.
Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Deputy Mayor Cower.
Through your worship, what information stored on a SIM card?
On a SIM card, these days, very, very little. It's typically carrier information. So your TELUS, Rogers, Bell carrier information. But unless you specifically choose to save contact information on a SIM card, there isn't anything other than the carrier information.
Yeah, because I know like when I switch phones, I pull my SIM card out of my old phone, put it in my new phone, and everything downloads and all my emails, everything's all there. So I just was wondering how that worked because obviously there's something stored on the SIM card. I'm not a computer guy. I'm not a technical wizard, but I just know that I take a SIM card out of my phone and I plug it into my new phone and all my contacts, all my emails, everything's all there. My pictures, everything all transfers over. So I'm confused on that one. So thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Cower. Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So after our last meeting, I went ahead and I'm the least IT person here sitting here. I can guarantee you that. So you got to stay in your lane. And I asked the people that are in the know. So I know a gentleman whose business is IT and communication and does it every day. And he told me stuff that even I was scared about. Because let's say he gave me an analogy, like, you know, you go to a mall and there's a free Wi-Fi and you log on. Like if your cell phone, is it on Wi-Fi now, guys? Just ask yourself that question. And if it is, and you go past a place that has Wi-Fi, they can tell you exactly how long you were there, what you were doing there, how long you were shopping, if you purchased it with your phone or anything else. He says, yes, there is a risk. Is it a large risk? Probably not. But there's definitely a risk. So the point is what we've gone through, why would we take any risk at all after we went through ransomware or anything else? If our IT tells us don't do it, I'm a farmer, I'll feed you, you tell me what I'm supposed to do with the computer. So all I'm saying is this, everybody stay in their lane. And if you got a work phone and you're on holidays, leave your damn work phone at home. You know what I mean? So does anybody ever, when you're on holidays, do you, besides the CA or some other people or the fire chief, you know what I mean? If you don't need it, don't take it. Because when I go on holidays, I just hope and pray nobody phones me. You know, never happens, but that's what I always try to do. But that's my thoughts. It scared me when I had an individual that does it for a living every day. All right. And this individual is definitely extremely knowledgeable in what he does and what he doesn't do, because he does a lot for a lot of different agencies in Canada. So when he told me the ins and outs of what you can do, what you can't, it confirmed exactly what David did in his report. So I'm in favor of saying, leave your damn phones at home. Simple as that. Why take the chance?
Thanks, Councillor Shank. Councillor Norrie.
Yeah, I know there's a report coming up in a couple of meetings about personal use and stuff, so I'm not even going to talk about that, but I agree, no border. When you're not working, you're on holidays, no work cell phone. If you need a phone, take your own. The taxpayer should not be paying for another phone for you. I know there's money in the budget, but just leave it. Your work phone doesn't go across any border. And if you need a phone, you have your own. If you don't have one, you have to get one. I'm sorry, but let's keep it simple like that. No one here is that important that they can't miss an email. There's always a backup for everybody. Yourself, as Brian, and so on. There's 7 of us. If one of us is away, so what? And so on. So let people relax, but I'll get into more of that at the next meeting when that report comes up. My opinion.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Norrie. Is there anyone else that wants to weigh in before we entertain a motion? Okay, Councillor Shank moves staff recommendation, which is council receive for information, the financial IT services, international cross-border cell phone policy update report to protect sensitive municipal data during travel, and further that council approves the amendment to extend the policy to include all international borders and adopt a policy as presented. Moved by Councillor Shank. Councillor Hicks seconds that. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns or conversations anyone wants to have with respect to the motion that's on the floor?
So just to verify, that's going to include every cell phone, including ours. Is that correct?
I'm sensing, yeah, any work-related electronic devices, I'm guessing.
Perfect.
Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Executive Services, Inclement Weather Policy. And I see Mr. Grant going to the front, so. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Grant.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council. So this is, we're revisiting this report, which was presented at the last meeting, and just to provide a high-level overview to refresh everyone's memory. This is a policy that would provide delegated authority for members of staff to respond to inclement weather. The expectation in the policy itself is that people will report to work. And that we wouldn't close facilities unless it was absolutely unavoidable. Unavoidable would occur with, at the decision of the CEO based on advice received from the fire chief, who would connect with other service agencies. And if the decision was made to enact some of the elements of that policy, including facility closure, council would immediately be notified, as with the public. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there any questions or comments or concerns with respect to Mr. Grant's report or the presentation he just made? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information Executive Services Inclement Weather Policy Report, and further that council approve the inclement weather policy. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Norrie. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
This was discussed at the last meeting. So Matthew, you have the say. So if somebody has a little slippy thing and say, I'm not coming into work today, so it's not an excuse. There has to be a justifiable means, just so everybody understands that is watching also, that this isn't just because I mentioned at the last meeting, you know how when we went to school, it had to be a 4-foot blizzard and the school bus would still be there. You know what I mean? Now, a possible chance of snow and all the buses are canceled. So it isn't any of that. The CAO has that call to make sure that it's not abused or anything else like that.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shank, yes. There's provisions in there as well that if there's individual employees that are snowed in for whatever reason, they can make alternative arrangements on a one-off basis. But as for the workforce not coming to work and facilities being closed, that decision would be mine and mine alone.
Great, thanks, Councillor Shank. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there any other questions or comments with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Parks, Recreation, and Culture Service Standards. And I see Mr. Brown coming up. So Chris, whenever you get ready, the floor will be yours. Mr. Grant, are you going to start first?
Just a bit of a preamble for members of council and members of the public. So council will have seen one set of service levels from the fire department, a heavily regulated service that we have here at the town of Greater Napanee. Starting with Parks, Recreation, and Culture, you will see a number of services that council is offered a great deal more discretion over. With that in mind, it is our intention with this service, as well as the other services that come forward, to present them in three parts. First meeting will be council getting an opportunity to learn about the services of Parks, Recreation, and Culture today, which is fairly extensive. In between the first and second meeting, council has the opportunity to draft motions for changes to service level. Staff will be available to you to assist with those motions. And following that discussion about any amendments you may wish to make to that, there would be a request for a final decision to lock in the service levels. In addition to decisions on land and budget, service levels represent one of the largest areas of influence that council can have in the municipality. And with that, I'll turn things over to Mr. Brown.
Great. Thank Matthew. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you, Mayor and members of council. So the first draft of the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Service Standards is attached to the report. It's fairly lengthy, and so I've tried to summarize that in a PowerPoint presentation that's fairly brief. So it's just going to summarize the levels of service that are offered currently and give council an opportunity to review how the department is delivering those services now, and also recommend any changes that they might like to see. So just a general overview of our department, responsible for the operation and maintenance of municipal facilities, parks, trails, horticulture, cemeteries, sports fields, and playgrounds. Also responsible for recreational programming, rentals and bookings of recreational space, and the planning and implementation of corporate and community events. It's important to note that the service type is ancillary services that are important for the town to achieve its desired outcomes and priorities to meet citizen needs. But these service level adjustments can be considered and changed at council's will. Of course, respecting any legislative requirements that are in place. The funding sources for our department are general tax levy, grants and sponsorships, and of course, user fees. So I'll speak a little bit about the staff resource levels in our department. We have 5 full-time employees that are administration. That is the director, facilities administrator, cemeteries administrator, who both work out of 99 Advance, community events administrator, and the community recreation administrator. They both work out of the Best and Bash Arena. We have 10 full-time facility operators that are made up of 2 facility lead hands, 7 facility operators, and 1 maintenance/cleaner. We also have 2 full-time employees that have split roles. One of those employees is facility cemetery operator, where they spend 6 months in the facilities department and the other 6 months in the cemetery department. The other split role is the cemetery lead, that spends 7 months in the cemeteries and joins the public works department for 5 months in the winter to assist with winter maintenance. We also have 2 seasonal contract employees for 6 months from May to October, and they are on contract for 6 months. And then we also hire each year 13 summer students. 9 of those are in the parks, 2 of those are in cemeteries, and 2 of them are in horticulture. So as we get into the general service descriptions, I like to refer to these as the buckets of service. I've split them into 6 different categories. They are facilities, operations, and maintenance, corporate and community events, parks, trails, and horticulture, cemetery operations and maintenance, programming, rentals, and bookings, and lastly, sports fields and playground maintenance. And so these will be broken down into sub-services, which I'll touch on a little bit later. But on the next slide, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time going over some of the service standard methodology that we've put into this. You'll see in a lot of the services, we're trying to have clear, measurable benchmarks that define how the services are delivered. We want to ensure consistency, reliability, predictability, and quality. So what we've done is we're we're trying to define specific quantifiable criteria. And these are just examples. They're not tied to any one service, but just examples of the common themes that you'll see throughout the document. You know, defining the response time to be within 24 hours, saying that grass is to be cut at a height of 3 inches every 5 to 7 business days, inspections completed daily, weekly, monthly, annually, etc. Building condition assessment completed every 5 years. Parking lot snow removal completed by 7 a.m. on the same day as snowfall. Sports fields open for the season on May 1st. Splash pad will operate from June 1st to September 30th, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily. So those are some examples that you'll see throughout the document. Again, defining specific quantifiable criteria that we can say we're being predictable and that the community knows exactly how we're delivering our services. So the first one is facilities, operations, and maintenance. Those are broken into subservices, 5 different subservices. Facilities operations, cleaning and janitorial, building maintenance, testing and inspections, parking lot snow removal. So the 9 main facilities that we're looking after, which obviously doesn't include some of the smaller facilities in our complexes that are seasonal facilities, like at the fairgrounds, we have a canteen building with washrooms. Those aren't included in here, but these are the 9 facilities. The Best and Bash Arena, administration building at 99 Advance, town hall, library, train station, Selby Community Hall, North Fred Community Hall, South Fred Community Hall, and 12 Market Square. Yes, that one will hopefully soon be off the list, but as it stands right now, we're not spending a lot of time there anyway. The next one is corporate and community events. How do I turn that on?
That's all right, Chris. We'll just keep plugging through. It's okay. I'll keep going. So corporate and community events. So the subservices in this bucket, if you will, are corporate events, community events, and also community halls. So starting with the corporate events, those are set during budget time by council, and we've agreed that the 7 community events are Earth Day, Seedling Giveaway, Canada Day, Movie in the Park, which happens 3 times each summer, Trunk or Treat, indoor markets, 2 per year, Light Up the Park, and the Parade of Lights. So we also have the community halls, and in this service bucket, all the rentals, programming, scheduling that goes into those community halls is done in this one. So we do have 5 community halls that we're responsible for booking: Roblin Hall, Selby Hall, the Best and Bash Arena Banquet Hall, North Fred and South Fred. There's also the 2 lounges at the arena that are for booking as well. And we're hopefully going to add to that list with the addition of the community space at Town Hall here. The next one is parks, trails, and horticulture. So the subservices in this one are parks maintenance, garbage removal, trails maintenance, boat launches and docks, and horticulture and beautification. So what we've done in this one is we've tried to categorize the different types of green spaces that we are looking after. We've classified them as a community park. An example of that would be Springside or Conservation. A neighborhood park, example being Cherrywood Park or King Street Park. A parkette, Westdale, Grange Crescent. Other areas, and this one was tough to define, but we have several areas that are town-owned property that we cut the grass at. We also have our administration buildings properties, road allowances along roadways that we cut as well as part of our beautification. So they're classified in the category D. And then we also have a category on its own for utilities property maintenance. So those are things that we cut, like pumping stations, the water plant, and any utilities properties that we're looking after with our grass cutting. So that being said, we have 9 community parks, 5 neighborhood parks, 11 parkettes, 44 municipal properties, 14 utilities properties,
And so that makes up over 80 locations that we're trying to cut in a 5-day window. And so we've set the service level right now at about every 5 to 7 days, we can hit those properties. Without rain, it goes well. If we get a few rain days in a row, we do get behind. And so we try to give ourselves a little bit of leeway there. But this is a good example of if council wanted us to spend more time in certain areas, this would be a good example of prioritizing certain pockets over others. So just to continue on that, we have 42 garbage receptacles that we're emptying daily throughout the busy season, which would be like May to September. We have 3 trails. We have 4 municipal boat launches that all have docks. We have 35 community gardens and flower beds that we're luckily partnering with Communities in Bloom, the Horticultural Society on, which they're a fantastic help, and we wouldn't be able to do what we do without them, but we are responsible for watering those as well. We have 48 hanging flower baskets downtown and around the downtown core. We have 20 large planters and 14 small planters around the downtown core as well, and 18 bridge baskets. So there's quite a bit going on here in this service level, and what we've tried to do is categorize them and give them a service level that we can withstand with current resources. So the next one is cemeteries, operations, and maintenance. The 2 subservices in this one are cemetery administration and operations, and then the next one is cemetery maintenance. These are things like in the administration side, burial services, invoice and payment processing, plot purchasing and transfers, record management, and mapping. In the cemeteries maintenance, among other things, grass cutting and trimming, tree maintenance, land clearing and ground leveling, burials, and monument restoration. So we have 40 cemeteries that we are the licensed operator of, which means that we have a requirement with those 40 cemeteries to maintain them. The maintenance is not clearly defined. We have to make sure that we're preserving those cemeteries. So we've classified the active cemeteries, which are Riverside, Riverview, Roblin, and Sand Hill. We've made 3 different categories for those. And so we're weighting Riverside and Riverview a little heavier than Roblin, and then that's coming in kind of second, and then Sand Hill coming in third. And then as far as our inactive cemeteries go, there's so many of them. Some of them we are able to cut every week. Some of them we might be able to get to every other week, and some of them we're not doing much maintenance at all. There's also inactive cemeteries that the property owner is maintaining on our behalf, but we're still required to go and make sure that everything is fine. That private property owner that the cemetery is on, that we are the licensed operator of, has to give us access to go in and just check on things. So there is a varying level of maintenance happening at these cemeteries. Okay, moving on. So programming, rentals, and bookings. These services are primarily completed out of the arena office at the reception desk there. They are customer service, planning and scheduling, mobile vendor permits, advertising, preschool skating program, skating opportunities, and the sponsorships that go with those skating opportunities. These are a little bit trickier to identify, but the keys to these services are making sure that we have consistent dates for things that we're doing, making sure the public is aware. We're consistent with our approach on when we accept, booking requests and when we get those back out to the public so that we can be consistent year in and year out with the way we're doing business. The last one is sports fields and playgrounds. So we've broken those into 6 different subservices: soccer field maintenance, ball diamond maintenance, outdoor sport courts, playgrounds, splash pad, and skate park. We have 9 soccer field locations. I say that because some locations have multiple mini fields or version of that. We have 9 ball diamonds. We have 3 outdoor courts. We have 15 playgrounds. We have 1 splash pad and 1 skate park. These again are varying depending on the amount. There's a number of factors that go into the service that's provided at these certain places. With playgrounds, for example, we're trying to define how often their maintenance is done at them, how often they're inspected, if they're seasonal or they're open year round. Same with ball diamond maintenance. We want to define, when staff are present there for a national tournament compared to just a 3-pitch tournament. So we're trying to define all those in the document. And with that being said, I would turn it over to council for any questions of clarification or any services that you might be wondering about or point of clarity. I'm happy to answer. And then we do have a little bit of time for you to review the document and ask me questions or points of clarification so that I can find out what those implications of changes could possibly be. Some won't have a ton of financial implications or resource implications, but some might have a big impact. So that will be my job to bring it back to you to give you what the implications would be with any changes to these service levels. And with that, I'll hand it back to council for questions.
Great, thanks, Chris. Is there any questions or comments for Chris? Councillor Hicks, then I'll go to Deputy Mayor Carver, and then I'll go to Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Chris. This is very comprehensive, and I've already downloaded it, and I've actually shared it with 2 people because it answers a lot of questions that the public in general might have. My question is specific to cemeteries. The cemeteries that are on private property that you have to request access for, of those 36, how often are you refused access? And what's your recourse when that happens? Because I know that the BAO is very tough. They're very focused, and they're pretty relentless when it comes to getting information. So just curious on how that works.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Hicks. So there are several of them. And what we do is we approach the property owner and just let them know, make sure they're aware that there's a cemetery on the property. Generally speaking, they are aware. And most residents are very good. Yep, go ahead. And we would go back and just make sure everything is up to speed and it looks good and it's no problem. They are required by the BAO to give us access to just check on them. So if we were refused access, then we would have to say to the BAO, we have been refused access. We're not going to be pushy about it, but the BAO will assist us in making sure that we do have access to a cemetery that we are the licensed operator of. The property owner does have the ability to license that cemetery under their own name as well. And they do have that option. If they don't want to do that, then they continue to license the cemetery to the town, and the town just has an obligation to meet the maintenance requirements.
I don't imagine that very many people are going to take up the offer of having their own license. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Deputy Mayor Calvert.
Through your worship. Chris, back to the grass cutting. I know early on in this term, you, myself, Annie Mannion, and I believe Brans Attenberg had a meeting about possibly hiring out some of the grass cutting in the less sensitive areas. I see you got a lot of less sensitive areas there. Have we ever done a report on that or taken a look at that to see if we could possibly save some staff time and some money? Because it may be cheaper. Don't know.
Yeah, through your worship to Deputy Mayor Calver. Yes, that's exactly one of the spots that we feel is most appropriate, that we could potentially save staff time and resources and focus our attention on more of the primary, parks and sports fields, if you will. So that will be part of my bringing back to you if you choose. I would like to recommend to council some of the areas that we could contract out. That aren't, and we could spend more time with internal staff on community parks, neighborhood parks, and the like. There's also a category in there of utilities properties that would make sense for me to have the utilities department look after those. Of course, in the past, we've been the department that's had the lawnmowers, so the grass that needed to be cut was on us. But at the same time, we're now reaching a breaking point where we can't take anything more on because we just don't have enough time in the day. So those are both areas that we could look at potentially changing how we do business.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep. I'll go to Councillor Martin, then I'll come back to Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Mayor. Chris, I just want to make a comment. I just want to say job well done. You and your staff do a tremendous job here in the community, and it's noticeable, and I hope the residents appreciate what you guys do because it's noticeable to me as a counselor. And like I said, I just want to make that comment. Job well done. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Bill. Well said. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I was actually going to ask about the utilities properties as well. When you cut those properties, do you charge your time and equipment back to utilities? Or is that just part of your day-to-day work?
Through your worship. So historically, no, we have not charged our time back to utilities.
Okay. I would be interested to know the amount of time that is spent there currently, like the resources, hourly, equipment, trucks, all that good stuff. How much is spent on groundskeeping duties on those properties?
Through your worship, just to answer that question for Councillor Hicks. So I know that Water Street alone, the amount of utilities properties along there, we're there for, probably about half a day a week. So it takes a lot of time. There's a lot of property in and around where there's going to be our new plant. And that will change a little bit in the future with the new construction, but we do spend a considerable amount. So it is something that we've discussed internally about ways we could potentially improve. And I think Mr. Grant has.
Yeah, go ahead, Matthew.
Thank you. And through you, Your Worship. So it's interesting you also raised the utilities question. Chris and I have had a number of discussions. Michael and I have had a number of discussions on that. I think that's the way it's always historically been done. But I think one of the benefits of having service levels is where you can identify where you would like sort of the parks and recreation resources put to. You can more easily identify, such as the deputy mayor has pointed out, if we were going to contract something out, where would it make sense to do that? I would suggest that utilities would probably make sense to contract that out if you wanted to focus the parks resources on parks. But this is exactly the kinds of discussions we're looking to have with you about service levels to see what your preferences and where you'd like us to spend our time.
Great, thanks, Mr. Grant. Deputy Mayor Cower.
Thank you through your worship to Chris as well. Because there's so many different options out there in the world today. I see a lot of these robotic lawnmowers out there, and they make some pretty big units that will look after cutting grass for you. So that would, eliminate an operator, eliminate a piece of grass equipment, a truck, a trailer. So maybe in places like that, it may be something you could look at as well and bring a report back to see what it would be worth. Because I know I'm seeing a lot more of them around. I've seen them at different conferences and stuff, and they're pretty impressive. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Calvert. Is there anything else for Chris with respect to his presentation of the report that's in front of him? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that the council receive for information the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Service Standards Report, and further that council identifies any service level changes by way of a motion or notice to motion at the July 8th regular session meeting, and further that council direct staff to report back on the implications of identified service level changes at regular session meeting on July 22nd, and further that council contemplate formal approval of the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Service Standards at the conclusion of this process. And I think we've given you at least some feedback, Chris. I'm sure that by the next meeting we'll be able to provide you with some more feedback. So, do we have a mover and a seconder for that motion? Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Norrie. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed, motion is carried. Thanks, folks. I think it's time for about a 10-minute break. So we'll see you in about 10 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. Moving on to our agenda. Next up is Executive Services Community Initiatives Fund Advisory Committee. Mr. Grant, you're going to deal with that. So whenever you're ready.
I am. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council, you will recall that we brought forward a community initiatives fund policy that provides the policy framework for how we can make money available to the community, how to deal with sort of requests for financial support and the like. So one of the things that I've heard from council over the past many months is two things. We would like to find the ability to really invest in community infrastructure that people really value, whether it be the waterfront trail, whether it be soccer fields, that sort of thing. You'd also like to make sure that we respect the moment that we're in terms of a difficult economic climate and do our best to respect the taxpayer while we're doing that. So, you know, as part of that community fund policy and the recommendation you see here today, it's to make the best use of the Artura Fund, which you will see from Mr. Nobes when he comes forward with his policy, giving council the ability to put some of those funds to community projects for maximum community benefit, while also maintaining a portion of those funds for individual community projects that community members come forward with. And that would be in addition to the monies that are made available via the community foundation that council also supports and invests in. Of course, this would be complementary to the community events policy, where council has also, in their wisdom, made services available to nonprofits. So with that in mind, what you have before you today are recommendations to adopt the terms of reference and scoring criteria for a community initiatives fund advisory committee, a mandate letter to go with that, recommendation to begin recruitment process for that committee immediately, to begin the first intake in fall of 2025, and that council directs staff to make recommendations for the amounts of funding on an annual basis through the budget process, and that we take resolution 22625 off the council resolution tracker. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there any questions or comments with respect to Mr. Grant's presentation of the reports in front of us? Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Matthew, had I seen this earlier, I would have asked, but I just am looking at the scoring form again. And at the bottom, it says total score out of 30. There's 3 categories where you've given 5 equals none, or 0 equals none, 5 equals all, etc. But there's 3, there's feasibility, organizational capacity, and budget justification that don't have any scoring numbers there, like any criteria for the scoring. And I'm just wondering if that was an oversight, because right now it's a total score of 15.
Yes, I would believe that would be an oversight.
And like I said, I'm looking at it now for the second time, and I just thought, wait, that only adds up to 15. So I would ask that be corrected.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Unless you know what it is right now, and then I have no issues with the scoring itself, like the form itself.
So in the form that I'm looking at, what we have is, so the scoring sheet you'll see is out of 30. And then based on that, the 3 things that we've talked about, like, so I think if I'm looking at this correctly, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 5, which would be a total score of 30. And then at the beginning, you would basically say like eligible and recommended for funding, eligible, not recommended, or that it's just not eligible.
Sorry. If you look at feasibility, the project is likely to fall within the proposed timeline and budget, but there's no score, like there's no way to score
Oh,
that.
that was an oversight, and that those will be included. So
Okay.
they're each out of 5.
Okay. All right. Good enough. I just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there anything further? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
This is more of a just so I have this clear. Matthew, that our heavy fleet, yeah, but all I'm saying, it's what I'm saying is the community investment fund, they're located here, I know, but it cannot, there's going to be a lot of pressures. I don't know if we're going to get any funding for the offset of the policing contracts, because if the province didn't come in last year, we would have been in other, that there's a certain portion of that investment fund as municipality grows, you know what I mean? Fire trucks, heavy, snow plows, stuff like this, that as long as that the town has a certain amount of access to a certain amount of those community funds to offset, because it's the taxpayer at the end of the day that pays it. So if you all of a sudden, you know what I mean? I as long as there's that it's not always just for soccer fields and everything else, because if you can't get to the soccer fields because your infrastructure is all gone for hell in a handbasket, as long as we have some options somewhere there in this community investment fund. Am I close? I see the mayor scratching his head here, so maybe.
So
Go ahead, Mr. Grant. I think he'll clarify.
So here's how I would put that. Because of the requirements we have that you just pointed out, like heavy, like roads, heavy machinery, that sort of thing. What often happens is you will have to take from discretionary, whether it be, recreation, amenities, that sort of stuff, and put it to heavy fleet and those requirements, because we have no choice. What this fund is able to do is to allow us to keep doing that while providing you the opportunity to invest in some of those areas of like recreation and the like, and provide some to the community. And the levy funding that you're collecting can go to those core needs. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Councillor.
So, okay. So my concern is that I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. I don't want to be handcuffed, because there's a lot of unknowns out there that when we go through the budget process and we find out, oh, by the way, we need this, and this, because we can't, I know the taxpayer pays at the end, but what they've been paying, you know what I mean? There's only a certain limit that you can tax individuals. So I understand this is for our growth. This will definitely help as a host municipality, which I totally understand. It's just that we have the option, and Ellen has the option to say, hey, you know what, we're going to need this to this, because we can't continue having a tax rate at the rate that we're currently going at the sustainability when you have your cost of inflation, I think it's 1.7 this last month, but you know what I mean? And you have 6. You know what I mean? So you're getting more and more into the individual's tax pockets, what they're paying. So all I'm saying is that we have the option, and our treasurer has the option to go ahead, and that there's funds otherwise available that might not be available. I just don't want to handcuff ourselves. That's all.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, and I think I can answer that question, Councillor Shank. That's one of the things that we identified and why we recommended the changes to the funding program that we did. So this provides council more flexibility and not less. It has to be within the certain funding criteria outlined by the funder, Atura. But that's a fairly gives council some significant discretion. And it will, if you will, unlock a number, a certain amount of those funds for discretionary use by council to direct to projects and initiatives for maximum community good. So it allows you to address certain projects in a wide variety of buckets that might otherwise have to be paid for by levy dollars. And you do.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is to both Matthew and Michael. So I'm sorry, I just, for my own benefit, need to clarify this. The way I read this agenda was we were looking at the Community Initiative Fund Advisory Committee. So how that will be structured in order to disperse based on criteria the Atura Power Community Benefits, which according to Michael's report, and as we discussed at a prior meeting, will start out at, I think it was $400,000. And then we made the decision that 50% of that was going to be put over, not 50, I can't remember the exact. Okay, so 200,000? 20%, sorry, 20% is going to be put over into a fund, a reserve that will grow based on interest, so that when the Atura agreement ends, we've got a nice little pot of money there for discretionary spending. The spending has to be strictly for community benefit. So it's not, this money is not for heavy fleet, it's not for anything like that. It's arts, culture, recreation, that's where the money is supposed to go. And the people that can apply for it will do so through the Community Initiatives Committee. Do I have that right? Or 90%?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, so we, what we have recommended and did through the policy to create the committee is you have up to, I think that right now we have $100,000 and it's in Michael's report, but up to 15% can be applied for by community groups. And that in future years will be set through the budgeting process, whether it's 15% more or less. When the $400,000 comes online, there's a certain portion of that that can be added to that fund as well. And council has the discretion, and the mayor has the discretion through the budget of how much is added to that. There's a certain portion that is put in reserves, and there's a certain portion that council has the discretion to spend on within certain funding categories that have been outlined by Atura in their funding criteria. So I think it's health and wellness, economic development, those sorts of things. Provided that council is able to fit within those categories, you can spend monies in those areas. Now, while the money itself wouldn't necessarily directly go to fleet, money that council might have to spend on things like trails or soccer fields or things of community benefit that you would want to do, that those monies can be directed to fleet and other things that we need. Without going to for more money on the tax base, because the recreational amenities that you would have needed to divide funds among, the ratepayers, there's another funding source for those specific areas. So I would say it provides us the opportunity to guarantee that investments in cultural and recreational amenities continue, both from a council perspective, as well as a certain percentage where people doing community initiatives have access to funds in addition to the community foundation. And it allows council to direct more of the levy dollars for the considerable pressures that we have upon us with respect to infrastructure, heavy fleet and the like. And I think that answers your question.
That is what I understood. This money is not for heavy fleet. This money is for safety, well-being, arts, recreation, culture, which frees up the levy money for the fleet and infrastructure. Okay, got it. Good.
Yes, Councilor, that's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
So that's the way I understood it also, but if we didn't get the funding for the OPP, you'd be in major hurt. I mean, beyond major hurt. So everything's on a service delivery. So what is your essential services that need to be funded? So the grass, the soccer field hasn't been fixed in years, which needs to be fixed. All right. So I understand your thought process, but I'm Joe Blow, ratepayer, that when TransCanada came in, the parking lot that they took all down, and there's nothing going to be expanded, and it's going to be all but back to prime ag. Well, that idea got thrown out the window now, wasn't it? Because that's what they promised all the residents around the community in town of Greater Napanee, that it'd be all back into prime ag. So that's gone. And then they went ahead and said, okay, we're going to do phase one of this BESS site, a battery energy storage system. And, it's not going to be prime ag anymore. And it's going to be something else. And they scraped that all down. So there was another one that through all the other things that TransCanada and Atura had said, which let's say Atura is a Hydro one, all right, subsidiary. So they might as well call it Hydro. So then they go ahead and then they're telling the residents, oh, by the way, we got phase two and we're going to go right up beside your property line. And your benefit is that you're going to have a nice soccer field and we're going to have other recreational amenities that you can spend the money. But sure, you're not going to take the tax levy to pay for this now because you're going to have the $4.8 million over a certain amount of years or the $400,000 a year. Certain percentage could be put into reserves. So when if that doesn't get renewed, that you're going to go ahead and you have a slush fund and you could bear the interest on that to continue doing your doing. But what I just want to make sure is that we have the option that if policing doesn't get funded, a lot of other things to have funded. You have a lot of other calls that that the fire department's going down because of the burns in public parks and stuff like this, the extra calls, there are other things that are coming down the pipe. You might need that extra money to cover the essential services to keep going without going into the major tax levy, without having a major tax increase. Because I just hate to. And so when Atura says, well, they're going to dictate to us. No, I'm sorry. You've had your chance of dictating to us. Thank you very much for doing business here. All right. But Hydro, we took your Oakville plant. We took all your other stuff down there. You promised us one thing, but we're told something else. And then that all got switched around. So the trust factor down for the residents in the south that have to put up to it, well, right next door, is basically zero. Because whatever they've been told has been changed. So I just want to make sure that we have, and all of town of Greater Napanee has the option that they don't get hit with a major tax increase, but they have beautiful parks, because that's all we can use is for the other stuff, because there's only so much money in the pot. So I understand your thought process. It's just that I want to make sure that we have the option to use what we need for whatever the best advantage is. I understand your thought process. If everything was on the same level playing field and we trust every year is going to be the same year, but next year, I don't know what the provincial government's going to do. So that's the only reason why I was a little bit concerned of we don't want to handcuff ourselves. If that makes any better sense.
It does. So through you, Mr. Mayor, so short answer is, can you use, say, that money to fill in a hole with the OPP? The answer to that is no. You can't. There's a fairly wide variety of projects that we can invest in. I would say that the nature of what Atura believed the funds could be allocated for remains intact, sort of what they would like to see in general money invested in, but the ability for council to exercise its discretion over the use of those funds has been significantly widened. So where before it would be 100% of funds that were administered by Atura, now there would be 15% of those funds overseen by a committee available to community groups, a certain percentage put into reserves, and then the remainder of those funds can be allocated in certain category areas. Now, I think it's not just parks or trails. There's a wide variety of things that it can be allocated to, and in certain buckets. Is it OPP funding? Probably not. But is it equipment to maintain trails to make sure that they can continue, or other things that would otherwise be on the levy and we'd have to ask the taxpayer to pay for? Yes, I would say it is. I would say it'll become clearer as we go through. As long as we meet the intent of the agreement, I think we're fine. If we wanted to broaden that out, I would suggest we'd have to go back and read it and amend the agreement if you will.
So I have faith in my staff. So you understand my concern. You guys, I have faith in my staff. That's my level of concern. You know what I mean? It's because it all comes from the taxpayer, and there's a certain that you can have a broader of what you can do. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll see how the process goes. And as like other agreements they have, other agreements can be always changed or whatever. As the thing was, because does this agreement? It has nothing to do with the phase 2 best site, right? All right. So thank you. So that's if council approves that, might be a different discussion altogether. All right. Thank
And
you.
so I'll leave you with this, Councillor Schenk. We share your concern about, the economic environment we're in and how much we go to the tax base for. And why this is why we wanted to bring forward and broaden the agreement to give council more discretion over it, because we appreciate council's interest in ensuring that we don't go to the tax base more than necessary, but we're also able to invest in a lot of the amenities that we need. And so this agreement provides council a lot more leeway than the previous agreement.
Thank you, Councillor Shank. Thank you, Mr. Grant. And the reality of it is that the phase, the 400,000 a year for 12 years, I think it is, that doesn't kick in until 2028, if I'm not mistaken. The reality of it is what we're dealing with is $100,000 from the Atura grant that they've turned over to us to a certain extent, which is what we're dealing with right now, I guess. So I'm sure there'd be further discussions down the road, but we're only dealing with the $100,000 at this point.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I think Michael can probably touch on all of those pots of money in his presentation, which comes next.
Yeah, and I know that he will. So we'll clarify some of that with the next report. Is there anything else for Mr. Grant with respect to the Community Initiatives Fund Advisory Committee? If not, we do have a staff recommendation. Council receive for information Executive Services Community Initiative Fund Advisory Committee report, and further that Council approve this Community Initiative Fund Advisory Committee terms of reference and scoring criteria, and further that Council approve the Community Initiatives Fund Advisory Committee mandate letter, and further that Council direct staff to begin the recruitment process for the Community Initiative Fund Advisory Committee members as soon as possible, and further that Council direct staff to prepare a report for Council's consideration confirming the annual intake deadlines for the Community Initiative Fund and the funding amount for the fall 2025 Community Initiative Fund intake, and further that Council direct staff to include recommendations to the Mayor for the exact amount of funding available in each Community Initiative Fund funding round in future years as part of the annual budget process, and further that the resolution 226/25 be deemed complete and removed from the resolution tracker. Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Norrie. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed, motion's carried. Growth and Infrastructure Atura Power Community Benefits Agreement, and Michael's going to clarify everything we probably just talked about, but yeah, so it should make this discussion a little easier anyway.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to Council. So a lot of this discussion was just held on the last report, but I will go and provide an overview of how the agreement with Atura, formerly TransCanada, currently operates and how the proposed agreement intends to amend the operation of that fund. So in 2014, the town and then TransCanada entered into a host community agreement spanning 20 years, which would provide the municipality $100,000 per year for 20 years. That agreement runs out in 2034. And what Atura has proposed to the town associated with the natural gas turbine expansion is that in 2028, when that piece of equipment comes online and is commissioned and is operable, that then Atura would provide $400,000 to the municipality for community benefits. That's in line with the rated capacity of the turbine. It's 400 megawatts capacity, so it was $1,000 per megawatt for the duration of their contract per year, which is a 12-year contract. So this would run 2028 to 2040. The agreement that I'll touch on shortly does have automatic extensions built in. So if the ISO agrees to extend beyond 2040, the agreement would survive with that extension and carry on without the need for amendment. So this would be a 12-year agreement totaling around $4.8 million over the life of the agreement. And the highlights of the agreement are as follows. The current host community agreement penned in 2014 would now be administered in accordance with the new agreement. The way in which the existing agreement operates is that 2 staff members from Atura and 2 from the municipality review applications that come into that community development committee, if you will, for review to make a determination on which applications should be awarded monies based on the funds that are available. This would essentially eliminate that community development committee and put all of the decision-making within the town's right, effectively. So of that total $100,000 that remains until 2034, it would now fully be under the control of the municipality. So 20% of those funds would be put into a reserve to survive the expiry of both the 2014 agreement and the agreement we're speaking to now. And 15% of those funds would go to the Community Initiatives Fund. And the balance would be available for council's discretion so long as it fits within the pillars of the agreement, which are aligning with community safety and security, health and well-being, environment and sustainability, recreation, housing, arts, culture, and heritage, and ultimately address an identified need within the community. So the $100,000 per year that the municipality is receiving, 20% goes into a reserve, 15% goes to the Community Initiatives Fund, and the balance would be up for council's discretion based on the pillars within that agreement. Then in 2028, from 2028 until 2034, there's an overlap of 400,000 and 100,000. So for those few years, it's a $500,000 allotment. After 2034, it drops down to the 400,000 until 2040 for 6 years. So the overall framework that staff and Atura have come up with is that all of the decision making is left to the town. There's effectively Atura is removed so long as the decisions are made in line with those pillars that are contained within that agreement. And as Mr. Grant spoke to previously, there are ways in which the municipality can effectively access them through different mechanisms and having varying impacts on the levy. So no more community development committee. It's all under the control of the municipality, and the large ticket items. So the 65% yearly allotment would be fully for council's discretion on large ticket items, as Mr. Grant alluded to. So staff are before council recommending that this agreement be executed. If council would like to sit on it and contemplate it any further, this can be deferred if chosen. There's no true time limit on when this would need to be penned, as long as it's before 2028. It's just based on the discussion that staff held with council in closed session previously to kind of lay out the framework of this. Atura staff are reporting back to say Atura is in agreement with that direction that council provided previously. So this is where we are. Atura is fully in agreement with what council was seeking previously, and staff are recommending approval at this time, but certainly understand if council would like to defer. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Nobes. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I think it's a good idea, Michael. This has given us the opportunity to disperse these funds where we didn't have that opportunity, and it was really a bizarre sort of situation where the town was involved in the dispersing of these Atura funds but council wasn't. And I understand at the time it was designed to try and be apolitical. It still doesn't really make any sense to me. I like the plan that's going forward. You know, we're thinking in the future, putting some money into reserves. We're creating a fund because we do get them on a probably bi-weekly basis of people looking for some type of funding, whether it's some type of relief for halls or whether it's some type of funding that's required to hold an event or anything like that. So we're creating a fund and an initiative to be able to deal with those types of things. And then the other 65% that I know that you spoke to is going to provide us an opportunity to perhaps fix soccer pitches, fix trails, replace equipment, you know, and I think that the pillars you spoke of are wide enough and loose enough, I guess is the best way to put it, that it can be interpreted fairly easy into a lot of different things that we do, which will ultimately save us, you know, levy money, I guess is the best way to put it, to you know, put into our heavy fleet or to increase our reserves or whatever the case may be. So going forward, I think it's a good plan, and I think that's I think it's going to work very well. So that's just my opinion anyways. Is there anything that come out of any of my comments, Councillor Shank?
No, I agree with you, Terry and Mike and Matthew. Sorry for always being the devil's advocate. Host municipality agreement, all right, with waste management years ago. What the host municipality agreement with across from Sanders Shores with the solar panel, solar farm there. So I understand the host municipalities, but at the time you were limited what you could do, what you couldn't do within the certain rules and regulations. So after questioning you or Matthew and then you've thought of everything, it gives the 60, I agree with it, but I've been handcuffed so many other times in the past, what we can do, what we couldn't do. And with the TURA funding in 2014, I was on. So I understood what it was and with the two, and I argued it back then, but that was the only way we could do it because, and not 100% of that is used every year. So hopefully that gets compounded back into it. All right. So, sorry, go ahead, Mike. So, so they have it accurate, but now that the municipality more has the say and council can see exactly what they're doing, what they're not, and the 65%, I agree with. But I always try, I don't know if it's just me or not, but 65%, I just, you know, okay, I understand the whole process, but I like to have the council or the council at the time, you know, that we leave it better for the next generation. So whoever it happens to be here, if they run into a difficulty, they can go, hey, yeah, you know, our forefathers had enough sight to see that might happen. But I understand your process, and at the time, you know what I mean, I'm more confident in what you're doing here. I'd always like to have it a little bit more open, but I can only do what I can do. So there we go.
Great, thanks, Mike. Is there anything further? We do have a staff recommendation. That council receive for information the growth and infrastructure TURA Power Community Benefits Agreement report for the council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an amendment to the 2014 host community agreement included within the agenda. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up. Mike, are you going to deal with this one as well?
Yes, Your Worship, I am. Yeah, thank you. And through you to council. So this report is for council's awareness only. We're not looking for any commitment from council this evening, but we're just looking to ensure that council is well informed on the state of fleet ahead of budget discussions to help inform making defensible data-driven decision-making. Staff are going to be bringing forward a fleet rationalization and replacement strategy. So this would look at what should be our useful life or planned sales of assets when we purchase them. How long do we hold them before we sell them? Is there a way that we could consider renting or leasing or combinations thereof? we're putting our mind towards that, and that'll be coming at a future meeting, but just wanted to make council aware that that is something that staff are working on, and will come before council at a future meeting. The intent with that is really to help make budget decisions more predictable, I guess you could say, around fleet and heavy fleet and large ticket items, so that we hopefully take out some ebbs and flows in the budget cycle as it relates to replacement of municipal assets, to keep them on schedule and hopefully reduce our overall maintenance line items associated with an aging fleet. More to come on that, but just wanted to make council aware that we are working on that. Would also like to make council aware that on July 22nd, staff are going to do a presentation on automatic vehicle locating, so AVL, applications, generally speaking, and discuss their benefits. So whether that's the real-time tracking, vehicle diagnostics, route history, and route optimization, driver behavior, speeds, idling, those sorts of things. The AVL systems really provide an ability to accurately maintain vehicle maintenance records and operational records in an easily accessible format. So not speaking about it tonight, but we will be on July 22nd. We'll make an information presentation to council on that topic. Staff looked at useful life of heavy equipment. We did our very best to try to find any published manufacturer recommendations on estimated useful life or estimated hours of use. None are published that we've been able to find. So we reached out to Rush Truck Centers to give us a sense of what they would deem to be an appropriate useful life for heavy fleet. What they found is that an ideal life of 5 to 7 years is truly ideal, an ideal replacement schedule. And that's solely based on their experience with their lease team, where they find it costs more in downtime and repairs to keep an older vehicle rather than replacing it on a routine schedule. Additionally, the Cummins warranty coverage was provided by Rush Truck Center, and they confirmed that at about a 500,000 kilometer odometer reading, that would typically lead into about an 8 to 10,000 hour useful life. So their coverage covers less than 500,000 kilometers, but we worked with them to extrapolate out to, all right, if we're targeting around 500,000 kilometers or an 8 to 10,000 hour useful life, how does that compare with the industry? Without anything published, that's what we've been able to come up with, is about 8 to 10,000 hours of engine hours. I would note that given the harsh operating environments that these trucks specifically are operating in, being salt laden, it really does dramatically have a dramatic impact on the overall health of fleet, and is really important to consider in life cycle planning. So in the report, staff have highlighted the top 3 pieces of public works heavy equipment that are either at or beyond their useful life, and are considered or could be borderline on whether or not they need to be removed from service if there is an identified safety issue that might crop up. Almost anything can go wrong with these older pieces of equipment. So it's hard to say when exactly something may or may not happen, but we are aware that some of these are really getting up in age and really could be cresting over that point of having to be pulled off the road. So our top 3 are the 2011 A2011 tandem plow truck, a 2005 loader, and the 2012 four-wheeled excavator. I'll get into the cost implications a little bit later. But on the town light fleet side, I just wanted to highlight we have 43 overall, and what staff have been able to do is pare down and identify 3 vehicles that can be fully removed from the light fleet count by the end of summer. So we have 2 vehicles that we've identified that can be sold immediately, and 1 vehicle that is being used by summer students at the moment that could be sold at the end of the summer. So we're looking to reduce from 43 down to 40, and we really think that's the most optimized, efficient light fleet count that we can get to. Additionally, we're including fire apparatus for council's awareness. So Chief Armstrong has noted that ladder 811 and pumper 821 are both at or beyond their useful life. They do not have reserve replacements for these frontline apparatus. So when they go out of service, it's very detrimental to fire response. Staff considered contingency planning. So when one of these vehicles were to either need to be pulled from the road or had a catastrophic failure because it would result in an exorbitant amount of repairs to get it back on the road, we looked at renting, leasing, and mutual aid options available for council. Renting, we see extremely high rates and very limited access. Especially in our local context here, which is a semi-urban, semi-rural environment. We don't have extremely ready access to every single piece of equipment that we might need. So that is something that we would consider. And if we did have a massive failure that needed to be replaced, it could be leaning on our neighbors to the east or to the west with mutual aid. Could be leasing or renting. With mutual aid, depending on time of year, there may or may not be excess fleet available with our neighbors. So something to keep in mind. From a costing perspective, what we'll discuss during budget, but just wanted to put the numbers in front of council for council's awareness. Tandem axle plow truck replacement, we're looking at $455,000 to purchase new. That vehicle that I spoke to has identified $64,000 worth of repairs required today. So the discussion we're likely to have at budget is, do you want to put that much money into this older vehicle and it continue to have issues potentially, or replace it? And the same with the loader, a $345,000 vehicle. It's got identified $94,000 worth of repairs required. The excavator is a $400,000 piece of equipment with about $54,000 worth of repairs required to keep it fully operational. The ladder truck, $2.75 million, and the pumper truck, $750,000. So some large ticket items. Staff are not asking council for anything at this moment in time. We're not going to be asking for all of these pieces of equipment all at once. We understand that the challenges of that would bring to the municipality, but just wanted to make council well aware of the state of the fleet itself and the associated costing that could come about. So in consideration of these very large numbers, financing strategies that could be employed would be either use of reserve funds, levy increases, debt financing, or a combination of all three. So again, not looking for anything tonight, just for information. But there are some levers that council can pull to help reduce the immediate impact on a levy increase by taking some debt if required. And lastly, staff looked at fleet complements, and just again, it's for council's awareness. So we surveyed quite a number of municipalities to look at what are other municipalities' fleet complements on the heavy fleet side. On average, the average plow route per vehicle is 58 kilometers, and the town's is at 82. The average sidewalk machine of those surveyed is about 17 kilometers, and the town's 28. So I just make that for council's awareness. We're not asking for anything additional now. We're not asking for an additional fleet, but I just did want to commend staff that they're doing a fantastic job with the fleet counts that we have in order to provide the level of service that we do. They're doing a lot of work all in a very short and sometimes long period of time, depending on the weather event. And they certainly take great pride in the work that they do. And I'm available for any questions that council might have, but just did want to give council an overview of what top 3 items we're looking at in public works, the 2 items in fire, as these are the highest ticket items. And as appendices to the report, we've provided the data related to each piece of heavy fleet, heavy equipment, town light fleet, and fire department. So just to give council a holistic view on all town fleet, all in one picture.
Great, thanks, Michael. Is there any questions or comments for Michael with respect to his report or his presentation? And I know that we will have some more robust conversations about this. There's some pretty big numbers there. So go ahead, Mike, then I'll go to Dan.
Mike, this is just for budget time. So year one in this term of council, I asked for maintenance records because they always ask for, I need this truck, or I need this and this and this. And up to last year, we didn't have a full year of maintenance records, so they couldn't give me your maintenance records. And we have 2 mechanics working there, so when they get a piece of equipment and every truck has a number, they put it into it. So I'm amazed that they exactly know how much it's gonna cost to fix some of those vehicles now. So that's great news for me, all right? But when you're comparing with other municipalities, I'd also like to see, all right, other municipalities, they might have fewer kilometers per truck. But what is the age of those vehicles? Because I know other municipalities have got a lot of older trucks. We just replaced with the utilities van, all right, that only had 88,000 kilometers on it, all right? But they wanted a new one, all right? So I argued that case, and it's democracy, so I lost, so be it. But all I'm saying is I see another one here that you don't need. Is that the same one that was replaced? Because here you have a utilities van that the summer students are using right now, and it doesn't need to be replaced. Now, is that the one that we were carrying forward? Because in our discussion, was that utility van where they were gonna keep it, they were gonna get the new one, because the RFP came from Braden for the new work van, all right? And they were gonna keep this one for 88,000 kilometers, and then they're gonna sell it, but say it, in the report, it states that it doesn't need to be replaced. Was it because we've already replaced it, or are we replacing, or is this another one? I just, you know what, come budget time, we'll have all those discussions. So Mike, I don't want to stay here any longer than we have to. So these are some of the questions that you're going to get peppered with come budget time.
And I think that was the one that was replaced, Mike, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was just from memory. I think it was anyways, but we'll confirm that when we get closer to the budget time, but I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure that was the one that yeah. So go ahead. Sorry, go to Ange, then I'll go to Brian. Oh, I'll go to Brian.
Thank you, through your worship. So am I reading this right? We've got a truck on the road right now with an oil leak, a turbo actuator air leak, 2-ply frame ending its life cycle. The steer tires need to be replaced. The tailgate's cracked and needs to be replaced. Is that truck on the road right now?
On the road today, in the summer months, I don't know the answer to that, but I would think it's likely not in routine operation today and more of a reserve vehicle, but I can confirm.
Okay, thank you, because that's all just general everyday maintenance that should be looked at and checked out on your timesheet every day. So yeah, I'm hoping it's not on the road. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Deputy Mayor Calvert. Is there anything else? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation to note and receive the Growth and Infrastructure State of the Municipal Fleet Report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calvert, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns. Oh, go ahead, Ange.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mike, the municipal comparisons, so the total lane, so 900 kilometers, that includes the work we do on behalf of the county that we're paid for, correct?
Through your worship, yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor Hicks. It's 9:37. I don't think we're going to get done by 10 o'clock, so I think we'll see if, sorry, Madam Clerk. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we better vote. Better clean this one up before I jump ahead. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Now, do we want to go past 10 o'clock? I know we got about 22 minutes, but it's going to be close again. So I just soon get it out of the way if we are going to go back. Move to go past 10 o'clock. Seconded by Councillor Shank. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns? All in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is Executive Services, storage of Napanee Beaver historical records. Mr. Grant.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just going to give an overview of the report on the request to store many editions of the Napanee Beaver that was requested by community members not that long ago. I would preface this by saying, as a former journalist, I see the value in newspapers more than most, I think. And so what you'll see in the recommendation is that we don't maintain these in our facilities, and simply because, quite honestly, I don't think we have the capacity to guarantee that they will remain pristine in perpetuity. We don't necessarily have the facilities to do that. And I wouldn't want to be responsible for what can only be described as community treasures sort of deteriorating under our watch. I do think the proper place for something of that nature is in the archives where they can be visited and taken out. That being said, we have provided an alternative that if council does wish to maintain these, then it would be the North Fredericksburg Community Hall. Not an ideal location. We are storing some of our documents there that we're going to have to sort out as well. Additionally, we can open it up for alternative ideas, including choosing some of the most historic news stories or front pages, if you will, and having those framed and storing them and displaying them in various community facilities, which is not a recommendation, but certainly something that we could do. But as to the actual request from the community group that we maintain them, my recommendation would be that we don't, for the simple reason that I'm not confident that we can do so in a way that would respect the historical significance of these documents. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Matthew, I can appreciate staff doesn't want us to retain them here and would prefer that they go to the archives in Ottawa and whatever, but the Heritage Committee, which I'm a part of, and of course Jessica is too, we believe, now, we did discuss it at our last meeting. We believe they need to be retained here in town for our use for people who want to search historical records, that type of thing. If they go to Ottawa, we'll never see them again. The people in the area will never see them, they won't see the light of day again. So I understand the staff initial recommendation here, staff recommendations, but if I go to the bottom of the page and you just mentioned North Fred, I have it by good authority that there's a room out there at North Fredericksburg Hall that all it needs is a knob on the door with a lock. And I'm looking down at that end down there, but I know this exists. We don't need a climate controlled room. Those documents lasted for over 100 years in a damp basement of the Napanee Beaver. And if they last another 100 years here, we're going to be okay with that. So I don't want to get into a whole slew and we need to get out of here tonight. So I would just prefer to make a motion if I'd be allowed. And my motion will read, council directs staff to make available space at North Fed Hall to store historical editions of the Napanee Beaver as soon as possible. It's funny that our person we honor here tonight, Cam Eady, uses those very documents. And I think everybody in the community thoroughly enjoy seeing those. You'll see eventually there was a project undertaken by a member of the Heritage Committee, which is the history of the Greater Napanee Fire Department. And he told us at the meeting last Thursday, he got most of his information from those very documents we're talking about. So I think it's very important that they be retained here in Napanee, in Greater Napanee. And I think like I say, we don't need climate controlled room. All we need is 10 by 10 by 10 room that has a door on it, and we can store stuff in there. So that's going to be my pitch tonight.
Thanks, Bill. We'll come back to you. Councillor Penal. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I do believe that the archives here in Napanee do have a copy of every one of these issues. So we do already have them here. These are just leftover copies that I'm led to believe, the ones that we're being asked to store. But that's why the archives don't want them, is because they already have a copy of each one of them.
Yeah, and that's, I was going to suggest that because I know they've got a proper storage for newspapers and stuff like that. It's like a vault and it's all climate controlled. So I was hoping somebody was going to remind me as to, had the County of Lennox and Addington Museum been approached, and what was the result of that? Because like I say, I know they do have some stuff up there, and I know that they do have the proper type of facilities. How much room they got there, I haven't got a clue. But was the museum contacted as far as storage? Because that would solve everybody's problem, I think. Yep, go ahead, Bill.
Mayor, I believe the museum was contacted. Jessica could maybe direct me differently, but I believe they were contacted, and I don't think they're interested in these particular documents.
Madam Clerk, can you help us out?
Through your worship, I don't have anything in writing, so it would be relying on my recollection of that meeting, and that was some time ago. So I want to speak with confidence.
Councillor X.
Through you, your worship. So I'm leaning with Councillor Martin on this, but as soon as you put something in a room with a lock on the door, who's got the key and who controls the documents and who gets to touch the documents? Because this isn't like, you know, I dropped my notebook, I'll dust it off and it's fine. Not everybody knows how to treat these documents. I know when Heidi and Cameron brought that book, I think those were the originals. Like that was that day's copy of the Beaver, and it was in this book, and the pages were incredibly fragile. So I agree. I know exactly what basement you're referring to, and it's a miracle that they survived as long as they did, as well as in a garage, and now we're moving them inside. But who's going to have access to them? So we're keeping them, but who's going to say, sure, Bob, you can go out, here's the key to the room, you can go out and look at them, make sure you wear gloves and don't tear any of the pages. Like who, do you understand what I'm, like, do you guys get what I'm asking? That's putting a lot, is it somebody from Parks, Rec and Culture? Is it Jessica? Who's responsible for looking after them and seeing them and using them?
Yep, go ahead.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the Heritage Committee would look after them on our own, to be honest with you. I could, I can't speak for all the committee, but I know how strongly the committee feels about this particular project, and they're going to be very disappointed if we don't retain them here. And I think that's really who holds the key. I mean, it can be at 99 Advance Avenue in Chris Brown's desk drawer if you want, but I mean,
Yep, go ahead, Ange.
Not the physical key, the metaphorical key. Who's in charge of the documents? Like, is it going to be the Heritage Committee of the town of Greater Napanee in perpetuity after this council? I'm in a rocking chair in a nursing home somewhere. Who, like, is it going to be written somewhere that these does anybody else understand where I'm going with this? Like, yes, for right now, I agree. Put them out in North Fred, but in 3 years, you've got a new council and they're going, so yeah, we're going to expand. What do we do with all this paper? Because they may not care. Unfortunately, so what safeguards are we putting in place for the use of the documents, and who's looking after them 10 years from now?
I think Mr. Grant is going to weigh in, then I'll go to Deputy Mayor Cower, and then I'll go to Councillor Shank.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council, if it's the will of council to retain these North Fred Hall, which we indeed have those, we have that space. It is also council's privilege to direct staff to come back with a maintenance plan about how they can be accessed, what that would look like. If there's an expectation that staff makes them available, what that looks like as a service level, that sort of thing. But if it is that council's will that we want to maintain these, it is also your privilege to tell us how we would do so.
Are you going to, go ahead, Ange, and then I'm going to go over to Brian.
Thank you. So that's basically what I was getting at is this, it's an added service and it's a benefit to the community. Don't misunderstand me. I don't want them to go get locked away in a room in Ottawa, never to be seen again. I'd like to confirm, in fact, that all of these particular documents already exist in some form at the county museum. I'd like to know that, if we could find that out somehow. Can we make a motion that they be temporarily stored at North Fredericksburg until we sort out, are these the only versions of these documents that exist? Are they a copy? Are they the original, the copies at the museum? And yes, what is the service level attached to this? If Mr. Eady wanted access, I'm not going to say no. He's been accessing them all along. If the Heritage Committee wants access, but if a high school student wanted access, is somebody going with that student to ensure that they're treating our property correctly? Because we've assumed ownership of it, right? What parameters are we putting around assuming ownership of these documents? That's all I want to know. But in the meantime, sure, keep them at North Fred.
I'll comment, but I'm going to make sure I get a hold of, everybody's going to have a comment. So go ahead, Brian. I'll get back to Bill, but I want to get to Mike too. So go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, through your worship. My only concern, and I hear everything everybody's saying. My only concern is North Fred. There's not somebody there all the time. And all it takes is for a pipe to break at 10 o'clock at night and you got a flood. And what just happened to all them, because it happened to us at the gun club. 4 days, didn't know we had a flood, and every single record we had was destroyed, completely destroyed. Because what does paper do? It just sucks up all that water. Different in somebody's home, they would know they had a flood coming on. Somebody's there all the time. I don't see that as an option, but I do like the idea of finding out, are these already in the archives here in Napanee? And that's what we need to find out first before we make any decision, because if we take the responsibility on and these go down North Fred Hall and 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, roof leaks, nobody realizes leaking until it's too late and the damage is done. There's nobody there all the time. That's just my thought process. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Carver. I'll go to Councillor Shank, then I'll go back over to Councillor Martin.
So I'll second Bill's motion. All right, it's gonna go to, there's a lot of unknowns right now. All right, there's, Brian's got some definitely comments, everything else, whether the county has it all or not. In the meantime, let's get him out of the poor guy's garage. All right, put him in a municipal building. All right, until you figure all the other aspects out, whether it's already a double copy, whether or not, or what everybody else has said. All right, but we owe this to we wouldn't have had any of those if those individuals wouldn't have taken them. So you know what? So we should be thankful for what they've got. And then we're not going to go ahead and say, oh, by the way, you're saving a part of our history, but the heck with you, we're going to kick them somewhere else. So keep them local, keep them in North Fred until you figure all these other things out. And maybe some summer student microfiche them all or whatever they're going to do, or whether the county's done it or not, and go from there. But in the meantime, let's just save the documents and keep them local, because they are local documents. So I'll second Bill's motion.
Yep, go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, man. Yeah, we're not looking to decide tonight who's going to access them or who's going to take ownership of them. All we want is a storage space to get these out of a guy's garage who doesn't want them there anymore. And it can be temporary until we decide what we can do with them, where we can put them. And that's why I said that it doesn't have to be a climatized space. All we do want to do is preserve these documents, and it could be temporarily. So all I'm asking tonight is, can we store them out at North Fred Hall, where I know there is a room out there that, you know, will hold them? So that's all we're asking for. We get off in the woods on all this stuff, and make it simple. Can we or can't we store them North Fred Hall?
Thanks, Councilor Martin. I'll entertain your motion, then we'll have some more conversations. But well, let's get your motion on the floor so we can have a discussion. Moved by, do you have what you need, Madam Clerk?
So I've moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Shank, that Councillor see for information the Napanee Beaver Historical Editions storage report. Further, council directs staff to make space available at North Fredericksburg Hall for the storage of the historical editions of the Napanee Beaver as soon as possible. I don't have anything else in that motion at this point in time.
I think there needs to be a friendly amendment to suggest that this is only on a temporary basis until a permanent location for the newspapers can be found. At least in my humble opinion, I'm reluctant to take ownership of these things. As much as I love them and as much as I love seeing the things online, it's just, there's a whole lot of work that's got to be done to this as to how are we going to access these things. And I know that's not going to be the discussion for tonight, but we have to, if we're going to be in the archive business, we've got to have a plan. And we don't have a plan. We really don't. We want to stick these things into a corner until we come up with a plan. And I don't think that's a plan. At least in my humble opinion anyway. So a quick call to the to a true archives, which is the County of Lennox and Addington, can maybe resolve a lot of these things, but whether in fact they actually are things that they can store and put onto microfiche, because I know that they put many newspapers onto microfiche from the early 1900s, because you can go right online and pull it right up. It's really quite simple. So that's what I would suggest anyways for a, if we're going to store these on a temporary basis until a permanent home can be found, and the permanent home has to have a plan to go along with it. So. Would that make sense to the mover and the seconder?
That's good with me. An amendment just on a temporary basis is great.
So it's good with the mover and the seconder. So we do have a motion on the floor. Madam Clerk, do you have what you're looking for? Okay, is there any further discussion anyone wants to have? I'm sure they will, since that's
through you, Mr. Mayor, we will do all of those things.
Okay, is there any other conversations that anyone wants to have with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed, motion's carried. Next matter, executive services, proposed dog control bylaw amendment. And Madam Clerk, I see that you've moved to the front, so the floor is yours when you're ready.
Through your worship, this report is before you tonight, as over the past month, our enforcement staff have identified a few areas where they believe the proposed amendments could assist them in more effective enforcement of dog-related issues. Specifically, we are looking for flexibility to add more types of enforcement order in addition to a muzzle order, as well as the ability to deem a dog as potentially dangerous where it has exhibited a pattern of very concerning aggressive behavior, but has not yet actually bit a person, but where the evidence indicates a strong likelihood that it will bite a person, that some preventative measures can be taken at that stage. if if council is supportive of these amendments, we'd look to bring forward this bylaw at the next meeting. We could also do additional review, consultation, or amendments as requested by council.
Great, thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any questions or comments with respect to Madam Clerk's report or the presentation before us? Seeing none, I think it's a good idea, Jess. I think we've recognized that there may be some gaps in our bylaw, and it's always nice to fill those gaps in. So thank you for doing this. We do have a staff recommendation. Council received for information the Executive Services proposed dog control bylaw amendment report, and further that the council direct that a bylaw be brought forward for consideration. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Norrie. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed, motion's carried. Now at this point, I think, Madam Clerk, we will circle back to 9.6. Am I correct?
Through your worship, yes, that's correct. We'll circle back to 9.6.
9.6, minor amendment to the Chamber of Commerce agreement. And I guess we'll go to Deputy Mayor Calver. You spoke to this earlier.
Thank you, through your worship. Yeah, I would just like to get some verification a little more in depth. Anytime you're playing around with insurance to make sure that everybody is covered. I just know personally myself with doing shows and doing stuff that we always have to have a policy, a separate rider on our policy to ensure that we have ample coverage. It says the chamber shall require all farmer market vendors to carry appropriate liability insurance. I just want to make sure that everybody is being looked after and covered here. And if they don't want the cost reported between $20 and $25 per vendor per day, reported to be on common requirements for individual vendors at the local markets. I just want to make sure that if the vendors aren't going to have insurance, that somebody's going to have insurance to protect the corporation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll look for some direction from Madam Clerk, and maybe look to get that information for the Deputy Mayor and just put this in unfinished business. Would that be the appropriate process or procedure to do this?
So through your worship, yes, I believe the appropriate procedure would be the council defer the matter until written confirmation of the insurance implications can be provided to council.
Great. And would it be appropriate to put a return date on it, or will we be boxing in too much?
Through your worship, I will bring this matter forward at the earliest possible opportunity. I just don't know when I will get that paperwork.
Absolutely marvelous. Do we need we don't need any type of motion or nothing. We just put it in unfinished business.
Yes, if we could have that done by way of motion. Motion to defer the report to request that additional information.
As Madam Clerk, we'll look for that motion moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Norrie. Is there any further comments, questions, concerns?
We'll contact our own insurance company in the chambers to make sure that we're adequately covered, and we'll go from there, right? Yep, thanks.
Yeah, if there's nothing further, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed, motion is carried. Bylaw number 2025-0051 to regulate encroachments on municipality-owned lands. And I know that we had a presentation on this on the June 11th. Look for a motion to put it on the floor. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Shank. Ready first, second, and finally passed. This 24th day of June 2025. All in favor of the motion? Opposed, motion is carried. Information reports from members. Is there any information reports that members would like to task staff with? I'm sorry, that's inquiries. This is information reports. Seeing none. Inquiries, is there any inquiries council would like to task staff with to get some more information than we already have? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
All right, this is for Matthew. As one person said, the cheese has definitely fell off the cracker on this one. I've been going across the Glenora Ferry for 55 years. I'd like you to contact Rick Brise. I think he's a parliamentary assistant to transportation, is he not? So for the last 5 years, we've had ramp failures, ferry failures. There's been down, I don't know how many times. They have enough staff now to run 2 ferries. Now, when you go across the ferry for 55 years, and I live closer proximity-wise to Picton than I do to Napanee. And the amount of, since 49 highway is totally destroyed, so the amount of traffic along Highway 33 is unbelievable. I was told by a lot of staff members that some of the ferries definitely need repair in January. So when are they going to fix it? They're going to fix it now. So you're down to one ferry for the last two, they supposedly for the next 2 to 6 weeks. And the ferry that the bearing was going, that I was told even before January that needed to be repaired, its possibility of going down is extremely high also, and you might be done with no ferries. Now you hire twice the amount of staff to run one ferry instead of why not, and all the staff have scratched their heads on this one also, why wouldn't you fix a ferry when you only need one ferry? But in the middle of the summertime, there was a 2.5 hour wait, all right, to get across the ferry, all right? And people are getting paid to make those decisions. So we have twice the amount of staff, only one ferry running. And for the next 2 to 6 weeks, there was only one ferry running. Now, of course, MTO is going to be replacing all the culverts on Highway 33. So there's going to be construction. All right. And last year, Mike can attest to this, I asked for at the one end, at the west end of the Bayshore Road, that 2 lines be painted because of there's a passing lane right now, and the amount of speed that the people are trying to catch the ferry because they don't want to get in the 2.5 hour line, to get under 2 hours, so they're motoring. All right. One of the local senior citizens almost got clipped there because that never went it through to MTO, so they didn't put the 2 solid lines. So I would like to, first thing is ask Rick, just find out exactly what's going on. I know who's running it, or I have a pretty good idea who's running it, but the frustration level has gone right through the roof. I had minimum of 30 phone calls on Sunday and Saturday, and I'm sorry, it's not the municipality's responsibility. I'd love nothing better to go down and start firing people, but I don't have that luxury. So if you could find out what's going on and raise some stink of, come on, get your act together. All right. And number 2 was, what else was there? Oh, if you could get that double line, you know what I mean? With the, it's at the east end of Adolphustown, double line past that Bayshore Road entrance. I think Jeff asked them last year to make sure that it was done or whatever, if you could do. I know it's a provincial highway and we're limited what we can ask them, but they don't seem to listen anyway. So, but I was thinking maybe get out there with a yellow brush myself and do it myself, because it's the only thing everything gets done. So, huh? The other thing was, if you could also ask them to bring that 60 kilometers, all right? Right now, bring it 1 mile east, all right, or 1.5 miles or 2 miles east of Adolphustown, and 2 miles west of, or a mile west of Adolphustown, because they're, it's just an accident waiting to happen, so there's my, definitely the cheese is falling off the cracker with the provincial government when it comes to MTO. There we go.
Mr. Grant, do you have what you need?
Yes, I do.
Thanks so much. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Councillor Shank, for reminding me of a question. Speed enforcement cameras in the municipality. It's kind of like mat tax, just sort of falls out of, it's there to get. Is there a possibility that we could actually, on our roads, I know we don't have any control over the county, but, or in conjunction with the county, and we, I don't know, split the money, but there are a lot of maniacs in this town. They're on residential streets. I can give an example. Richard Street, they redid it. It's beautiful. I wish it'd been like that when I was a kid. Skateboarding and biking, awesome. Now, like they're coming around the corner off Dundas and going up Richard Street to a stop sign, and I bet you they hit 60 before they get to the top of the hill. It's, you watch them, you can't get out onto Bridge Street from Belleville Road because they're just, they're doing like 60, 70, 80 down to the lights. So like, what's involved with us getting enforcement cameras?
I think Madam Clerk wants to weigh in on that. Go ahead, Jess.
So through your worship, this is something where I would like staff to be able to bring a report back to you. I'm not going to be able to answer that question for you tonight, but we can certainly look into it. I know it's been discussed very high level at TAC. And so we should be able to provide that information back to council of what the steps would look like.
And I know there's some, well, yeah, it's okay, that's my license plate, but I wasn't driving. Well, then you better be more careful who you loan your car to, because you're still on the hook for the ticket. Like, yeah. I really think that enforcement, because we don't have police, we can't have police everywhere where people speed. School zones, Southview. I've sat there and watched people come into like past where the bus parks, and they're easily doing 70. I realize that time-wise, Madam Clerk, you'll have to figure out the schedule, but yeah, report back and maybe the end of summer, but definitely, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Hicks. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anything else anybody wants to get off their chest? It's only 10:15. Seeing none, notice to motions. Is there any other notices of motion? New business. Is there any new business? Announcements. Does anybody want to make any announcements? CEO's remarks. Mr. Grant, would you like to make any remarks? The forward calendar. I know we've all had an opportunity to look at it. I read it last night at midnight. Is there anything in that forward calendar or the council resolution tracker that anyone would like to? Go ahead, Councilor Norrie.
Just minor, you have July 23rd. The meeting's not Wednesday, is it? It's July 22nd. I don't want to be here the wrong day.
That was a typo.
I'd make a joke, but it's getting too late in the night, Councilor Norrie. Is there anything else? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Cower.
Yeah, I just see September 9th, we're going to be bringing the backyard chicken thing up again. Is this a good time to ask some questions about that or wait?
Madam Clerk.
So through your worship, almost 2 years ago in September 2023, I was told to bring it back in 2 years to see if the bird flu situation had changed at all. So that is the report you will be getting in September.
Sounds good, because it's gotten worse instead of better. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Calver. Is there anything else? Seeing none, look for a motion for the bylaw to confirm proceedings of Council of Corporation of Town of Greater Napanee. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councilor Martin. Read it first, second, and finally passed this 24th day of June, 2024. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilor Shank, second by Councilor Hicks. There's no further comments, questions, or concerns. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thanks, folks. We'll see you in a couple of days.